I'm going to call the 1 o'clock school board workshop together for Tuesday, November 28th. At this time, please rise for a moment of silence to pledge allegiance to the national anthem. Thank you. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red flares bursting in they flew through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you, be seated. Roll call.
Wolf Furry present.
Christy Chong.
Sally Hunt.
Colin Conley.
Cheryl Massaro.
LaShawn Gilmore.
All right. Any special announcements at this time?
I don't see on here for, yes, no special announcements at this time.
Right. Board liaison updates. Mr. Ferry.
Okay. Have a few here. One, the chamber, they hosted an excellent tour with Ms. Moore, Superintendent Moore, that took about 25 business leaders through the schools, and I heard great feedback from Greg Blase that all that attended were very impressed with what they saw. So thank you, Superintendent Moore, for doing that. Also, at Buddy Taylor Middle School, they had a career exploration event where the kids could actually engage with community businesses and ask them questions about what it might be like to work there. And actually, Principal Cronk had been engaged with that beforehand to make sure all the students had their questions for these different businesses that attended there. So it was, again, another very positive experience with that. And also, ESC, EPAC, they held a amazing activities summit that was meant to bring the leadership in the schools and the parents of the EPAC and discuss how they could make events and activities more inclusive for our students that have some disabilities. So, and it was both of myself and Superintendent Moore were there, and which was great engagement. I think that the leaders got some good information to take back with them to put those into action. So that's all I have for today.
Ms. John.
For school health advisory today, there's been an increase in RSV, which I think I can personally say we've seen a lot of that too. Just my own personal experience in my family practice. We saw a lot more COVID and some flu too in the summertime, but that seems to have gone down. Hopefully it will stay down. But an increase in RSV. Health screenings are recently been going on. been approved for 2 additional SNAP nurses for the district. For health education, reproductive health has been changed. We now have to submit all resources to the DOE. And they moved puberty lessons from 4th to 5th grade. And for our Narcan protocol, 80% of the district has been trained. That's about it.
Ms. Hunt.
2 things. I attended the Rimfire Elementary Classroom to Careers kickoff, and the students were highly engaged. I love anything we do with Classroom to Careers as early as possible with our students. I think that's tremendous. I have an instructional design note for you that I'd like to talk to you about later, just based on my observations, but it was incredible. So that was highly successful. And then as far as, Carver Center, we had one of our meetings. That's another thing, Superintendent Moore, I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about. I think, tonight we're going to vote on some expulsions. I think the Youth Center, the Carver Center are 2 great resources for the community. I think there's probably an opportunity to utilize them even better than they are today. And the positive thing is there are some really great key players in the mix right now, and I always get his name wrong, but Sheriff Brannon or Brennan?
Brennan. Chief.
And I always say that wrong too. Chief Brennan.
Mm-hmm.
Chief Brennan is so brilliant and so kind and wonderful, and he's very much involved. There are some other key players, Shelley Ragsdale, who's longtime president of NAACP. But there are some really great players. I'd love to see, Dave attends those all the time. I'd love to, that's another thing I'd love to talk to you about sometime, of who from Flagler schools, how are we maybe better partners in with the Carver Center? Because I just think it's a great opportunity for us to do more there. So anyway, those are my 2 liaison updates today.
Okay, DOE has opened up rulemaking for comments. It's a little overwhelming. There are like hundreds to provide comment to. So I would encourage, that might be something worthwhile. Now is the opportunity for staff to even take some time to look at that. They do take the comments fairly seriously. And so that might be, I would recommend that would be something to look at. Also a reminder that we're coming up towards the end of the year and that FADS is offering that free ethics training online, and it's pretty straightforward. You can get through it fairly quickly unless you've already taken the ethics training somewhere else. Just wanted to share with you it's a great resource for you to consider. Senate Education Pre-K Committee met about deregulation bills. They are moving forward with looking at a number of different ways that they can actually peel back some of the regulations that are in place. There was a good bit of testimony during the last committee meeting. A lot about recess came up, about doing away, deregulating recess, which the recess parents are not going to tolerate. So I think that would, I don't think we'll see action on that, but it was interesting. December 12th, I'll probably be going up for committee, basically just to, not to comment or anything, but as the legislative chair for FSBA, basically waving in support. House Education Quality Subcommittee, DOE did a presentation on teacher certification, so they're continuing to look at ways to kind of loosen the opportunities for second career folks and others to get into education to meet the gap that we're really facing across the country, actually. If you haven't registered yet for a day in the legislature, registration is open. You have to make your hotel reservation on your own. They do not have a block of rooms this year, and it's going to be a super busy session. So if so, I would go ahead and try to make reservations as soon as possible if you're thinking about going. I would highly recommend it. It's a great opportunity to tour the Capitol, meet with legislators, get legislative briefs and debriefs, so highly recommend it. And then that's it. I'll be heading, unless tonight's a marathon meeting, but I'll be heading over to Tampa tonight or first thing tomorrow morning for the conference. Who else, is anybody else going to the conference?
I'm gonna go to Tallahassee.
Okay, cool.
Okay. All right, Matanzas SAC, they had the construction projects moving along nicely, and they had their topping out party, so they're actually getting ready to go under roof, so that's a good thing. We, the SAC approved the Hot Diggity Dog event, which is actually dogs and chips and water for all testing retake students who pass. So it's an initiative to get kids to be part of Hot Diggity Dog. I kind of thought it was a cute idea. One of the highlights there was the Apple Digital Community held a conference down at Full Sail, and they came up to visit Matanzas, which is outstanding. And they were people from all over the world, not just the country. And they couldn't believe that a public school could offer the technology that we are offering here. They were just overwhelmed. So that's huge, because in their countries, many of them, it's only private schools that can do it. So that's a huge plus to see. Then we had a presentation from the Hospitality and Tourist Program. The program's only 2 years old, and their teacher's phenomenal. She is building a wonderful program that's going to be very effective for getting kids jobs. And the kids are getting in there, and they're not exactly sure what they're going to do, and they're getting in, they love it. And they're taking on different industries that you wouldn't get, and they're getting a lot of certifications. So it's a good thing. Flagler Technical College, the Flagler Home and Lifestyle Show is January 20th and 21st. It is. Mark your calendars. There's still some spaces available. You can call for the school to get a booth if you'd like. Flagler Tobacco Prevention Partnership. FBC and Buddy Taylor SWAT Youth have been extremely busy promoting the need to not use tobacco or vaping. FBC hosted their Not a Lab Rat event to fight off big tobacco. Know the Law video is currently under production this year and will be offered to all 6th, 8th, and 10th graders. They're expanding that. Yeah, so they're getting 6th graders, which we need to do. Within Flagler County, 1 in 5 students are vaping. 1 in 5. That's a lot. That's an awful lot. Flagler Tobacco is working hard to convince the county and the city of Palm Coast to work on area zoning regulations to limit tobacco and vaping shops, as well as eliminate smoking in all public parks. The vaping shop across from FPC, when it went up, it was a problem, and the kids are still angry about it. They do not like it being that close to the high school. So they're taking action. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there.
We should develop a state legislative.
They should. And well, they want Palm Coast to start, at least locally. Focus on Flagler Youth Coalition. We had our first virtual teen town hall on October 29th. The topic was vaping and the dangers of fentanyl. It was the best yet, best ever. It was really well attended. The kids had some great suggestions. The process is growing now. Our next one is November 29th, tomorrow. And it's with student engagement and campus culture. And we're going to be talking about a lot about bullying too, because I think that's a big piece of that. So that's important and something that we do on the side. And it's great to hear their suggestions, how to address certain things. Flagler County Sheriff's Office and myself, we participated in the National Drug Take Back Day on Saturday, October 28th. Last year, the collection site collected 45 pounds of unwanted medication. This year, we collected 42 pounds. That's a good thing, because now a lot of people are taking to their local drugstores where they have disposal units too. So people are getting familiar with, get rid of those drugs. You don't need them sitting around your medicine cabinet for unwanted people to get their hands on. Okay? Prevention Advocacy Day is set for Tallahassee on January 17th for Focus. Focus will take approximately 10 students up there. They meet with our legislators. Last year, Senator Hudson took them on tour through the building. I mean, it's a great opportunity, so they're working on getting their participants, and they'll try to make a cross-section of kids, not just students at our high school, but also community groups. So that's a plus. Finally, Flagler Auditorium Governance Board met Wednesday, November 8th. It was a big deal because now they are officially called the Fitz, as I've told you before, and it's going well. With the loss of the Playhouse, Noel Bethea was there to request some funding. and that's because all those shows lost their venue. One of the biggest programs there is our Penguin Project, for those of you that are familiar with the Penguin Project. Bunnell Elementary School, thanks to Miss LaShaka Moore here, is hosting their show because they can't handle a lot of steps and stairs and things like that. So they're going to take the Penguin Project on at Bunnell, which is wonderful. And then Miss Bozeman stepped up, and she's going to open up their Pirate Theater, right? And they're going to host all their shows at Pirate Theater for a cost of only janitorial services. Thank you, Flagler County Schools. Now, to help with that, the Flagler Auditorium Governance Board donated $1,000 to pay and settle those bills, so they won't have any bills there. And then I believe on top of that, the Flagler Education Foundation donated $10,000. What was it?
I think it was 20, yeah.
Okay, 20, I knew it was money, I just didn't know how much. You know, so this is a community effort to get that program back on its feet again. It's a great community resource. You know, I hear they're gonna build. I think that we will see what they do, but everybody is reaching out to support them. So all of you involved, I'd like to thank you on behalf of the board for doing that.
Silver lining in a horribly, such a historic building.
It is, so that's my report. Good, okay. All right. Agenda, changes to the agenda. There's more.
Yes, I recommend to the board that we adjust 10.01 to be, to follow right behind public comment, and then we will go through the rest of our agenda as printed. So my recommendation is to move 10.01 Advent Health Partnership up to after public comment, and then follow our agenda as printed.
Got it. All right. All right, so we're up to public comment. Do we have public comment?
I did not see any, but no, there are no public comments.
Anybody here who did not sign up that would like to make public comment? Okay, seeing none, then we're going to move then to 10.01 Advent Health Partnership Update. Presenter Josh Gorgie.
I'm actually Josh, but I'm going to pass it off to Eric here.
Eric. Okay.
Come on up.
Come on up. Come on up. Come on up. Go.
We're obviously never done this before, so we don't even.
Please, welcome.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I want to thank you for the opportunity to actually meet you and chat a little bit about this journey. So, as you know, Advent Health, we started a partnership with the school. The conversation started about in 2020, but it came into fruition in August of 2021. That's when we started. And we just ended up 2 years, the first 2 years ended in August. So we wanted to share some information on the work that has been done and will continue to be done here in our community. I feel blessed to be able to be part of this project in my community where I live and where my kids go to school. So it is a blessing to be here and sharing this work. And hopefully we can continue to grow in the work that we're doing. And I want to turn it over to Eric because technically he's the one doing all the hard work.
We got that on record. Right?
It's on
It's
video
recorded.
now.
All right, we're there.
Refer
We're there.
back to it anytime.
Well, thank you so much for having us. I'll introduce myself. My name is Eric Nason. I was here when we first presented this, and I recognize some of you, and some of you are new, so hopefully this is a recap, but also an introduction to what we're doing with Flagler Schools. I serve as the manager of sports medicine for clinical integration within our partnerships, and so I have a clinical side of sports medicine that is a key component to this partnership that we'll talk about, but I also help with our partnership team as we look at the overall operations of how we can engage as a healthcare system to serve our community and to serve the students here at Flagler Schools. So I'm gonna respect your time. I'm not gonna go into deep detail, but I'm here to answer any questions. But really, we wanted to. It's been a while since we have had a chance to talk, and we want to share the highlights and the success stories of what our partnership is able to do within the schools. This has been an incredible opportunity. We're so excited about being on board. And so just to kind of do a partnership overview and a recap, this is ultimately it's a 5-year partnership. It's a 3-year partnership with 2 1-year renewable options. And we started in July of 2021. That's how long ago it was that we were here presenting. And the overall investment is $750,000 over the 5 years. That's $100,000 in cash and $650,000 in in-kind services. And we're going to break down those in-kind services so you can see what we are investing and how we are investing in the schools. So when we met with the school board, yourselves and the Education Foundation, we looked at what are your areas of need. And we came up with 3 pillars. One is the mental health resources. We know that mental health is huge in our community, it's huge in our state, everywhere you go, all of our partners, they're all looking, how can we better serve, how can we better help our students, our faculty and staff with mental health. The other one was the classroom to careers, and we already heard some of that in the updates this afternoon, is how can we prepare and help be engaged in the classroom to prepare them for a career. And if they're in a career of healthcare, we would love to have them be educated and raised in this community and then be employed in this community through Advent Health. And then our last one is our athlete care ecosystem. And that is our sports medicine. And you have 1,100 student athletes, give or take, from middle school and high school that deserve the health care and the services that any athlete would need when they come to competition. So I'm just gonna take a moment and break these down. And so if we can go to the next slide. Mental health, these are some shocking statistics, and we were throwing out some statistics just in the opening comments, but when we started discussion about our partnership, Flagler County ranked 24th in suicide by death in the state of Florida. By the time we signed our partnership and thereafter, right after, at the end of 21, we raised to 10th in the state with suicide by death by suicide. What's that?
That's the wrong way.
We went the wrong way, yes. And so as we started to ramp up our partnership, our goal is how can we curb that? How can we reduce that? And the studies are also showing that most of the suicide, death by suicide, is happening on an average age of 25, which is outside of your school district age group, obviously. But why not approach them early in their childhood, in their upbringing? And we need to better prepare our teachers and our staff to identify those issues, to recognize those signs and symptoms of mental health. And so we worked on, we're going to break down, I'm going to share with you the funding that we provided to assist with behavioral health resources, the continuum of care. Once we identify, how can we serve them, and what services do we have? Deploying these robust screening and assessment tools, allowing our teachers and staffing to have these assessment tools. And then obviously mental health education, it's constantly changing. This generation is dealing with a lot of components that are affecting their mental health, and for better education is going to allow us to better understand how we can treat. So Advent Health made a commitment, on the next slide, we made a commitment to the school district to work together towards innovative and non-traditional solutions. And so we were able to help fund an annual contribution to a mental health first aid education for teachers and staff. This is a program that will help identify, understand, and kind of respond to those signs and symptoms of mental health, help our teachers feel more confident about saying things to look for. And those topics that they were trained upon were anxiety, depression, substance use disorder, disruptive behavior disorders, just to name a few. And so this training really is set up to be able to improve the skills of your teachers and staff to provide that initial help. First aid, anytime you're providing first aid, we're not asking you to care through the whole scenario of help, but to get things started. And so once we recognize and we can refer and provide those resources, that's what our goal is through this partnership. On the next slide, I'm really happy to share this because this was amazing. And just last year, 22 to 23, when we launched the youth mental health first aid training for for teachers and staff, 80% of your Flagler staff have taken that training. And our goal is to obviously hit that 100% and make sure that those new teachers that are onboarding, new staff, are also brought up to speed with this training. This has obviously increased and resulted in an increase in behavioral health identifications. Teachers are like, hey, I recognize that, I get that, I need to say something, and more referrals are being produced. So our area of focus from an Advent Health standpoint is we understand that there is a shortage in the community for mental health services. We wish we could open up a door and say, here's our whole mental health wing, and it's coming. And it's something that we are creating a clinical team that is evaluating the needs for mental health in our community, not only in just our students, but in our teachers, and as it can expand from there. So we are currently continuing to work with our partners within the school district to identify those major needs when it comes to mental health. On the next, let me make sure I didn't miss one. I'm using my little cheat sheet over here. So on the next slide, mental health. So that's the mental health. I'm sorry, I got to turn around. Any questions with the mental health side of things? As we move into the continuum of care, this is really important. So now we have the screening process aligned. Now how do we refer? And so Advent Health has partnered with a couple of local organizations that can help deliver the care and the need that these students need. First, we use Empower. Empower is a network of care of over 30 network providers, which is excellent. They provide outpatient behavioral health services online. They can do it in the privacy of their own home. It includes not only just individual therapy, but family therapy. We understand that students carry a lot of their mental health issues that are a component of their at-home life, their family situations, and a variety of scenarios. So that allowing that opportunity to care for the family as a whole is a huge advocate of theirs. This is all HIPAA compliant and can be done very simply in the homes. We also use the Flagler's Care Link, and I misspoke. This is a network of 30 care providers. So this is actually the in-person care, and Flagler Schools is using this. Over 1,000 Flagler students have been referred for these services through the Flagler Cares Link. So between the virtual component and the in-person component, we're starting to see treatments increase. We're improving access. Is it the answer to all? Is the problem solved? No. But we've been able to provide more tools to your teachers and staff to recognize and then to be able to refer. And we have a community health division within our hospital that is working closely with these two organizations, making sure that the needs of the schools are met on an individual basis, making sure these families have the answers, or maybe there's further healthcare needs that those families need, and we're able to help fill that void. So the other pillar that we discussed is classroom to career. This is very near and dear to our heart because we're always looking for qualified healthcare providers. And you know, the neat thing about our hospital system is it's not just healthcare providers. Our hospital needs IT, our hospital needs security, our hospital has culinary arts, and you name it to run a functional hospital. And not only in Flagler County do we have one hospital when we first started, but now we have two hospitals, and happy to have Wally at the helm of our new Parkway Hospital. And so we're increasing the services that we're offering the community, but we also want to bring those opportunities to the schools. So the classroom, the career, we have the naming rights through our partnership of those programs. We have representatives from our hospitals and from our community that come and love to speak with the kids. I think hey, Sally, you have maybe said it, where the earlier we can get the kids exposed to healthcare and careers, more and more they're asked very early in their education, what do you want to do when you grow up? Where do you want to go? Because education is directing them. And this gives them that exposure very early. We're giving tours of the hospitals. There's nothing better for a child and a young student to be able to see on an educational platform how hospitals operate and how they function. We participate in the Classroom to Career coaching program, and also the job fairs that we have recruiting graduates, which is obviously our ultimate goal. On the next slide, you'll see that was our success. Is we've had 5 PCC students over at Flagler Palm Coast High School that were hired last year through the Allied Health Pathway Job Shadowing Program. That's the end result. That's what we want. What we also have is we have a free education program. Once those students get in, they might be a patient care tech or an MA or something on the entry level of healthcare, but we have programs where we provide tuition reimbursement and free educational opportunities to expand. They can go get their RN. They can further their education while receiving the training on site. And so this is a huge opportunity that we promote for all students that aren't really sure exactly what they want to do, but they have an opportunity to start their education and their career pathway with Advent Health. So we're excited about those 5, and hopefully we can present that number to even be more.
Let me
yes.
add something. So the 5, it could be more. We just don't know how to track it, right?
Mhm.
So it's very difficult for us to truly identify a student that is like, okay, I went through this program and now I want to work for Advent Health, versus maybe graduating and waiting 6 months and then simply applying and showing up. These 5s are the ones that we know for sure, but I like to think that there's a few more out there that we're just not aware of it. Yeah.
So we got to work with a way of how we can track that
It
with the
would be good,
teachers.
even your younger kids, as they get older, to see if planting that seed at the
Made a
elementary
difference.
level, does it produce those
How
students that
does it
want to go
come
into
out
healthcare then?
Yeah.
10 years later when
Yeah.
they graduate from college,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are some ways that we want to continue to measure and evaluate our success or change pathways. But right now, we're moving in the right direction. We have tours already scheduled for Rimfire in spring of 2023. We just recently had a couple of our employees go to a classroom to career kickoff day, where I know our athletic trainers that we've hired to be at the high schools went and presented on fitness and health and wellness. So we try to encapsulate all areas of healthcare, not just the doctor, not just the nurse, but all aspects. And we're really working on new plans and growing plans for continued job fairs, for career opportunities, educating everyone about what we have open, what we have available, as we also work with the educators on looking at our needs from employment and seeing if their certifications and their coursework align with the needs of the community, so that students aren't choosing to go to school right away, have an opportunity for employment. So one thing right in your backyard, and if you haven't been there, you need to visit this, but this is open to all Flagler schools to tour, is a SIM Center. And this is in our Advent Health Palm Coast Hospital. It is an amazing training facility that's been open for a couple years now. And it's a high-tech facility and provides nurses and other healthcare providers with the highest level of training. These mannequins are specifically purchased and in place that have training aids built into them and computer systems. You can see in this one picture, there's like a two-way mirror that an instructor sits behind it and can evaluate what's being done to that patient, and they can send biofeedback back through that mannequin through the computer system. Just a really neat thing. When they also have a program where they'll bring CPR mannequins to the classroom, and they have a race with CPR, and it's kind of a game to get them engaged and to get them not to be so fearful in providing first aid and CPR, and what does that really mean. So we can go very basic and very intense in the training. This is something that our doctors and team members use. This is something University of North Florida and Jacksonville University come down and use, and we want to open that to our students here in Flagler to be able to be exposed, to be able to take a blood pressure, to be able to see how some of these general ailments and illnesses are managed on these mannequins. Is a pretty cool opportunity right in our backyard. The last section we want to discuss is the pillar of the athlete ecosystem. And this is in my area of expertise, and as an athletic trainer myself. No, this is it. We're good. Yeah. So the athlete ecosystem is how we handle our athletes. This day and age, competition is growing, injuries are occurring, and so we're real excited about this segment of our partnership. And our goal was to employ 2 athletic trainers full-time in your high schools, and we were able to do that. These athletic trainers are incredible. They are working not only your sideline coverage of practice and games, they are doing rehab. They are managing our concussion protocols with Impact. Impact is a computer-based cognitive function. It's kind of a game, but the game measures the function and capabilities of short-term and long-term memory and reaction time, and it baselines tests them so that if an athlete has an injury again where a concussion is suspected, we can retest them and see the difference in the results to help us and our team physicians determine when it's safe to return an athlete. We can identify concussion. It's when do we return that athlete. We also have a new program we released. It's called Sway. It's used on the iPhone. We can do a whole team in the gymnasium at one time with this Sway. They put the phone on their chest. It speaks out instructions to stand on one foot or to close their eye and do certain things as memory games and stuff like that. We can use this on the sideline to evaluate an acute injury to see if we can safely return them. It just gives us another tool. The second impact syndrome of a concussed patient athlete is the most serious, and so keeping them on the sideline as long as we need to is important, and these tools help us. We're doing the pre-participation screenings, which is a huge component. The health and wellness of an athlete, new, a veteran to the sport, or a rookie to the sport. We want to make sure that they're physically healthy enough for that sport and for those activities. In the last 2 years, not only have we done the physicals, but we've added free ECG screenings, which is not a state requirement. It is coming, but we offer it in Flagler County because it's the best benchmark. It's the best effort to detect underlying heart conditions that can't be detected by your typical stethoscope, blood pressure. You need that ECG, so we bring that to the students. We deployed Healthy Roster. It's an EMR, cloud-based records database that we track just like in the hospital system. We track injuries, we track the treatments, the care, the communications with parents and physicians and providers. We can track and do reports on the number of knee injuries in football or the number of shoulder injuries in baseball. We can help the coaches kind of curb some of those repeated injuries, maybe because of training or facilities or something. So that's been a huge benefit, and I'm going to show you a couple more benefits from that. And then the CPR training. The CPR training was a part of our partnership that we would state law now requires someone on the sideline of every practice game conditioning to be CPR and AED certified. And so our athletic trainers are certified instructors to provide those trainings. And so that was another fulfillment of our contract. Yes?
Question. For the screenings, the pre-participation screenings, the cardiac screenings, have you caught any?
Yes, we have. So I have a slide, but I'll tell you right now, we had I believe it was six athletes that were flagged.
Wow.
One of them was a red flag. A red flag means it's urgent. They need to go to the ER, not the ER, but consult with a cardiologist immediately. And we walk them through that care. We let the family obviously make those medical decisions with their friend. But if they need assistance in finding the right staffing and right service line to get involved with, we provide that. Not in your county, but in Seabreeze, in Volusia County, we've had three students detected there at their school. One of them, a junior football player, just recently had open heart surgery because of that screening. Wow. These are just underlying heart rhythm issues that can only be detected through these ECGs. So we are saving lives, ultimately, and it's free. Yeah. So the more. Here's our heroes behind the scene. These are our two athletic trainers and our team physician. Michael Dorsch just came to us. He's at Matanzas High School. He came to us at the beginning of this year after we had another athletic trainer that was there before, moved to a new role, and so Michael came in and filled this void. Ron Steinware, you may know Ron. Ron started the sports medicine athletic training program at Flagler Palm Coast 20 years ago or so, and then as his kids started getting older, he went and took care of his kids, did a different career change, and now is back with us and is loving every minute of it. These two are superheroes. They are there from anywhere from 11 to 10 o'clock at night, and they flex their times based on evening games and practices and weekend events. They're doing tremendous work. And then we're happy to have Dr. Michael Campbell, an orthopedic surgeon, fellowship trained in sports medicine, who assists and oversees our 2 athletic trainers and is there on the sidelines of most of our home football games and is there for rapid referrals, easy access. He's been a real superhero. And I say that because, and I don't have that to share, I wish I could, but these athletic trainers have received texts and emails from parents thanking them for the care that they provided, praising Dr. Campbell for his sideline time and efforts to speak with the parents. So it's being well received. These guys are making a big difference in our sports programs. The next slide just shows we created an athletic training landing page, and this is something if your schools aren't linked to, or the school district I know uses this, but this is just our athletic training at Flagler County Schools. It introduces our athletic trainers, it introduces our team physicians, it provides protocol and policy documents for parents and families to read through. All the required paperwork for upcoming sports physicals are on there. It's kind of a one-stop shop that we continue to add information to, but really proud because this is the only county that we're doing this in, and it's a great resource for families.
Lashaka, do you know if we're linked to the website?
We are.
Awesome.
I wanted to do a time check. I forgot to ask how much time we had.
You're okay. You're okay. It's a workshop.
Okay. Oh, all right. 90 minutes it is.
I verified
How much time do
before,
you have?
and they said I was speaking really fast to respect time, but we're almost wrapping up. But on this next slide, I just wanted to show you just a couple numbers from our healthy roster. When we started putting this partnership together, I remember someone made the comment that we love the services that we had in the past, but we just never really knew the value of their services and what was being done and the number of what care was being provided, etc. So I took it on myself to have a goal to collect this information. So through Healthy Roster, this athletic training EMR, we're able to track a lot of components. So you can see here from the start of our partnership until November 1st of this year between the 2 schools, we had over 1,400 student athletes entered into the system, which is about right with 1,100 athletes, give or take, and we're not doing middle school in this. This is just the 2 high schools. I think we're capturing everyone that's in the program, so it's been a great success. We've tracked, and this is just documented, 832 injuries. We had a lag. We had a lag in an AT from Matanzas. They were filling in during a lapse while we were bringing Michael in, so some of the data wasn't captured in here, and I'm sure the number's high. That's all I'm saying is, but 832, and then we tracked the number of treatments that we've actually provided to these athletes. There's over 3,800 treatments, and that's a lot. Why is that a lot? Well, I'm going to put a little valuation to this to make it a little more beneficial. So each treatment that we would do, if we were providing those treatments in a healthcare clinic or arena or an office, there's a CPT code, which is a charge code that's valued. So based on CMS rates, which is your Medicaid, the dollar rates for these types of injuries in total have totaled $184,000 and change of services provided. Billable, or your non-billable might be like your ice packs or your heat packs or your nutritional consultation, stuff like that. Your billable are actually evaluation, therapy components, rehab modalities. So I say this because this is a direct cost savings to the student athlete and their family. So $184,000 of documented care is a huge benefit to these student athletes. And this is all documented. Parents are updated through EMR so they know exactly what their child's going through and being treated.
Let me add something here.
Yes,
So,
sir.
This data and the slide before is important. It was one of the requests from the school department because they were, we were going blind, right? So when we started asking questions, they didn't have the data. That's when they turned around and said, it's important for us to find a way to gather this data. So I appreciate you working on that. Now, this is not just savings, because I guarantee you that unfortunately, some of the families probably would decide not to do the treatment because of the lack of funds, and then it would be a lot more or more serious injury in the future. So the impact here cannot be looked at just in dollar signs, but also the health of the child going forward.
That's a great point.
I have this bullet point on another slide, but I'll just add to that. I challenged our 2 athletic trainers to start coming in a little early, at least 2 days a week, to do some on-site rehab, because we found that a lot of the kids weren't following through with the rehab that was needed based on Dr. Campbell's recommendations. And so we started doing rehab appointments during their lunch times or afternoon breaks or during practice when they could practice. We started tracking it at one of the schools, and now both schools are doing it, but the one school tracked since August 218 scheduled rehab appointments.
Oh, wow.
So these kids are getting the rehab, to prevent injuries from occurring again, but just to help them recover, which that happens a lot, is the students and the families can't afford or have access to the rehab, so we're bringing it to them. If you look at the next slide, this goes into our pre-participation sports physical. We've done this the last year. This was at FPC. They have a very large facility. We have 1,100 students. My goal is 50%, and we hit just about 50%, which was excellent. We not only bring in the athletes, we provide giveaways, educational materials. We have different service lines. We bring the Sims team out with their CPR mannequins. We provide ECG screenings in the locker room. So this doesn't capture everything, but it takes about 60 of our employees and team members, 60 volunteers to work one night, and it's a 2-night event.
Yeah, so all of the physicians, all of the staff, clinical and non-clinical, they are all volunteering their time to support this event.
And we're working on next year's right now, trying to get those. If you look at the next slide, this just is a breakdown of engagement by grade. So it helps us in our advertising and marketing and education. Actually 23, almost a quarter of it, those numbers are coming from our middle school, so we're seeing more and more utilization in middle school. Just like mental health, the earlier we can engage with the young athletes, I think we can identify any issues and provide them the care they need, and just create a safe environment for them to participate. We're increasing our registrations every year. So this on the next slide is just a recap of 2023. Great slide. 517 athletes screened out of the 1,100 estimated. We have 289 that took advantage of the free ECGs. 6 athletes were flagged. 92% felt the event was extremely valuable to their family. These are all iPad questionnaires at the very end. They're unanimous. 20%, this is one important thing, said they didn't have a PCP. They do not have a family physician. And so them going through this might have been the first time they saw a healthcare provider and was able to talk to them. So that was real important for us to be able to provide that. 62% attended for the first time in 2023. 4.9 out of 5 stars for the second year in a row. And 84% said that they would come back next year if this was offered. And the one question that you already asked was the last one. One red flag, immediate follow-up on an ECG reading, and that child has received the care that they needed to safely continue in sports. So that's really important. That's the purpose. We don't want just a quick screening where boxes are checked. We want an experience. We want to engage with the kids. And the number that's not on here is you can probably triple, quadruple that 517, because the number of moms, dads, guardians, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles that come along. We fill the gymnasium with a good 1,500 people in a night, and it's very, very active. So
how many hours, Eric?
It goes from 5 to 9, so 4 straight hours, both nights, 8 hours. We have online registration so that we don't have an influx of or overflow of people. So we take, I think it's 12 appointments every 10 minutes. And it's strategically placed so that we have enough providers to spend enough time, and it's not just like a busload of people. So the registration is very important. We did that because of COVID for safety purposes, not to overcrowd, but now it's actually a viable source of managing quality.
But we do take walk-ins.
We do take walk-ins. Yep.
Hours.
We have a process for that, and we get those that are registered, and then whatever we have left over that time, if we have 3 people that didn't show, we bring 3 people in. We had 32% no-show rate last year. we had about a 30% walk-in rate. So it's a wash, you know? So it works. We're going to try to improve that this year. The next slide just shows you can kind of save the date. May 15th and 16th. We are still working with Flagler Palm Skulls High School to solidify those dates. It does require us a day to set up all the pipe and drape and the flooring and everything. It takes us 2 days to deliver the service, and then at least a morning to tear it down. So that's 4 days that a school needs. We're still trying to work with Flagler and Matanzas to see which school can provide us those days, because Flagler Palm Coast is a little bigger. It provides us a little more opportunity to serve more people. This is just a bragging point on our 2 athletic trainers outside of just the standard head-to-head competition and practices that they cover on a weekly basis. These are extra events that the schools are providing that they are being asked to participate in. So these additional events are preseason, postseason events, invitationals, tournaments, a lot of fundraising events that are going on. Flagler Palm Coast is kind of in the middle of the north and the south along the coast here, and they have a large facility. They often are hosting stuff. So their athletic trainers are doing a lot. So you can see the number of athletes that are being covered. That increases the use of their time and supplies and equipment, and so we're working with the schools to help provide them with additional athletic trainer support, because these schools all come here and they don't bring an athletic trainer. So our ATs are responsible for carrying. And you know what? It speaks volumes on their dedication and their commitment, because they would not leave them stranded. They will always provide this and always be with them. I just wanted them to collect this so we could share with the school district and with their coaches about the work that they're doing across both of the schools. The next slide, just wrapping up here, we provided 29 CPR classes or certificates to coaches and volunteers. I already talked about Michael providing 218 rehab appointments. These are numbers that we're going to start tracking in both of the schools. And both athletic trainers have been asked by their leadership in their school to start an athletic training student aid club. Our goal is to not only use those student aids as a benchmark in other schools, they're used as an assistant to help with setup and documentation, kind of checking people in, setting up sidelines. But at the same time, another opportunity for a classroom to career type opportunity. And I will say that's how I got into athletic training, by doing just that. So very passionate by having them take part in that. Just lastly, there's some marketing opportunities. We do a lot of educational programs. We have a lot of handouts that we give up one more. There are a lot of these handouts we give. We have them online on our website. We give them to the schools. We give them away at our physicals, etc. About exertional heat impact, concussion, what to look for, all those important components that parents, athletes, and coaches need. And then the real cool thing, have you all seen our billboards?
On 95.
On 95, we've got them in our county. So if you look at the next slide, we wanted to tie in our awesome orthopedic program along with our athletes. And so these billboards here, you'll see on 95, one is with Matanzas, one is with FPC.
Wise choice.
This is, did we do all right? We balanced it up, right? We thought this was awesome. More of this to come. We also have a testimonial coming up with a student that had left shoulder label repair with Dr. Campbell and that relationship. And then we really took a little more interaction with the Potato Bowl this year at Matanzas. What a great opportunity. We had our marketing team there with tents handing out some freebies and just providing more information. We love being a part of Flagler Schools. This last slide, we gave each of these athletes their own billboard so that they could remember that by. This is such a neat, man, having your picture has got to be rewarding for them to see that up there, and family and friends. But this just summarizes. We could talk forever. I talked as fast as I could. I talked as fast as I could. But we're really passionate about this. This is a huge opportunity that we have as not just a hospital system, but we care about our community. Our team members live in our community. Ron's kids went to Flagler Palm Coast, so there's so many ties But to be able to see the successes in mental health, see the successes in creating career opportunities, and taking care of our student athletes is just a drop in the bucket of what we hope we can continue to provide you guys. And we really appreciate you allowing us to come and give our bragging report, our win record, and hope that we can continue this work. So, any questions?
Questions, comments?
Just thank you. I'm just a terrific community partner.
Mhm.
I'm really excited that you were able to share some of the data,
Yeah.
because it's just a way to measure what is happening.
Yeah.
And then also to put a value to it. But the value of that, even that one student, being able to capture that one student.
It is.
Priceless. Amazing.
I've been an advocate from the start.
Yes.
If you remember.
I remember,
This-
yes.
Yeah, this has been one of my go-to things. I have also participated now 2 years in a row in the physicals.
Yes.
Wow. That's all I can say. I mean, it's amazing, the production, the people, the assistance is phenomenal. To push that many athletes through in the amount of time that they go through. And it's far better than when I went to school, I'll tell you that right now. We were lucky to get a doctor to listen, make sure we were walking and talking.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is in such a need, it's so valuable to Flagler County. A lot of these kids can't afford physicals. They can't, or they don't know where to go. So it's so nice to be able to offer this service to our community, and you guys do such a great job.
Thank you.
So I just want to compliment you immensely.
Thank you very much.
Can you keep us looped in on the physicals? Because I work for Advent also. So
Yes, absolutely. So we have a save the date flyer that will be going out to the schools and that will be going on social media as soon as we finalize those dates with FPC. But yeah, we do have a volunteer program that we would like even more Flagler Schools staff and employees to be involved. It's a great way to help, with registration, check out. You don't need to be clinical. We have many roles to help. As it gets bigger and bigger, we need more and more people. So I will definitely keep you guys in the loop of what is going on with the physicals and how you can help and numbers and stuff like that.
What do you think the reason is that I saw a number of kids didn't get the
ECG?
Yeah.
First and
Afraid,
foremost, you'll hear the biggest reason is it's not required. They'll say, "Is this required?" And we say
I was
no,
just gonna say,
and they
we
don't do it. Now,
require
Orange County, Osceola, Seminole, Brevard, all are required.
So that might be a direction
Policy
we
we
need to
should
take.
look at, yeah.
We can
Definitely
provide
we
information
may
for you
need
to
to
make
take
that
that direction.
decision.
Yeah.
The second is the staffing. We need the program. We use a third party. I don't like saying vendor, a partner of ours who we play for that do this all across the East Coast.
That was the same group that came and did the presentation,
Yes,
right?
they did.
Okay,
So
I
we
was
work
gonna
very
ask if they
closely
were
with
involved.
with
Good.
Evan and them. And so each year we add additional providers. We need even more providers in
Yeah.
there. And I think it got backed up to a point where someone like, well, it's not required. But what we did do is we sent who we play for back to both high schools early this year to provide free physicals ECGs for those that wanted
did.
them. Yes.
Okay. Yeah,
So-
because I mean,
I
it's so
thought we talked
valuable.
about adopting a policy.
We did,
for
but we
that.
never got there, and I think that's something we need to look
Yeah,
to
we
do, because just saving one is a big difference, and yet generally you're gonna get one out of this big, huge screening.
It's 1 out of every 300 student
Yeah,
that
athletes
doesn't
have an
surprise me.
undetectable heart condition that can only be
Right.
identified by an ECG.
And
I
we'd
think,
rather have it up front.
I think Volusia County requires it because they've brought me their forms too.
So-
Yeah, maybe.
We should
So
definitely
we need to
look
look
at
at
the
that
policy.
policy.
I helped write that.
Do you have a sample policy
Yes, I
you
could
could
get that
send to us?
Yeah, that would be great. Okay.
They adopted it with an optional first year, and then when it went live, it was in the middle of COVID, and they ended up withdrawing from it for their own board reasons.
Right.
Okay,
And not to
that's
get
good.
into, I don't know all those details or reasons why, but we're working with them to kind of regroup, and we're out of that phase of life right now, and it needs. We detected 32 kids with a heart condition in Volusia,
Larger.
6 that were red flagged, and 1 that ended up having surgery, life-saving surgery.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
amazing.
we can do that, and it's actually a bonus to our community.
Yeah,
So, yeah. good.
absolutely.
I
So
would just like to say thank you.
Well, thank you.
Because as I listen to the presentation, I just think about all the additional things that I have experienced that Advent has done for our Flagler schools that wasn't listed there. You know, I think about the times that you, Wally, will bring a team out to Rimfire Elementary School for your day of serving and would help us, and we would literally plan events around you coming and being of support to our school. And I'll also say that if you go back and have a conversation with Daquan, you've invested a lot in him because he was a student at Rimfire, and I have pictures of him sitting in the medical lab that Advent Health brought forward to our community. So thank you so much.
We're excited. We've got some great things planned. One thing we're adding is a fuel fridge to our sports programs. It's going to be a nutritional center for those that do not have the nutritional components in between lunch and breakfast to prepare them for sports and competition.
Yes, that's great.
So that's part of our community health initiative, and putting those 2 fridges in the athletic training room. So that's something new that we're working through, and just some great opportunities. So as they pop up, we want to be involved. So keep them coming.
Can I've got something if we still have a couple of minutes. So just to kind of preface this, I'm originally from Bentonville, Arkansas. And so I'm from a community where students don't think about what's next for them. They're going to be a future CEO, Walmart buyer, J.B. Hunt logistics, director. We're in a different community here. And so I guess my question to you guys, and again, I'm sorry, I want to appreciate you as well. I mean, there's such a connection between Flagler Schools and Advent Health, and so I love your partnership. My question to you is, as you guys are talking about all of these jobs that are part of Advent Health, from the electrical side of things to the food service side of things, et cetera, et cetera, we do have this wonderful Classroom to Careers program started. We have a one-to-one Apple program, right? Apple devices. I'm curious of today, our average parent who might be working 3 jobs, because they're not a Walmart, right? A lot of our parents are not Walmart executives here, or you know what I mean, or that life. And Superintendent Moore, this may be also a conversation for you. What is the pathway? Do we, in your opinion, are we fragmented or are we streamlined in any given parent here in Flagler County from the time their child is in 2nd grade can say, here is a job description from Advent Health, right? Like, I want my child, these are the steps they need to go through to get from 2nd grade to this job at Advent Health. And, do we have it, LaShaka, that clear? Because again, I just think about, I tend to go all over the place, so forgive me, because I always have at any given moment a lot of thoughts in my head. One of the keys to success is engagement for our students, right? So if I see a future, if I'm engaged, if I know what's ahead for me, I'm gonna read more, I'm gonna work harder. If I don't really know what's next, what really is my motivation to do well in school? So to me, this is just, the Classroom to Careers is just one of the biggest pieces. And I love everything with the sports medicine, and I mean, it's all phenomenal, but Classroom to Careers to me is everything. So I am just curious, the connection that exists today, if we're connected, for instance, with Advent Health, one of our county's biggest employers, on, do we have that pathway baked that if there's a student who wants to be X, you're going to want to do this, you're going to do dual enrollment, right? You're going to, if you do this in 2 years and you do this, I don't know if I'm making any sense at all, but.
Let me speak, I
Thank you.
I understand what you're saying.
Put me out of my
misery.
misery.
Speak from our end, and then there's the school component. So, as Ms. Moore mentioned, in Rimfire, we have a lab there, that there's classes being presented at the lab where it's set up like a clinic. Our goal is to motivate the kids to have thoughts about it. I don't think that at that age they're gonna know clearly,
Sure.
What they want to be, and we don't want only the parents deciding what they're going to be, because it's not gonna work. It has to be.
Sure.
Parents can influence, yes, but the kids ultimately have to get an interest on something. So our goal really is for them to be exposed to healthcare at that age, And then we also work in terms of when we talk about tours in the hospital, it's just not walking around and looking at different operations inside the hospital. We have people going and talking to the kids. They're probably a little bit older at that point. Maybe, I don't remember the ages, but maybe freshman or sophomore. So our goal is really to stimulate those interests. And if it is for healthcare, then they can start having this conversation with their guidance counselor and then college, or if it's a financial situation where what are the careers in the hospital that does not require a college degree where I can start and then I get my tuition reimbursement there. So our goal is really to really educate the students of this is what is out there related to healthcare, because usually they think doctor, nurse, that's it, right? So when they get there, those are the people that we want to put in front of them. There's the financial component, there's the food services component, there's the pharmacist there, and then their minds are like, when they start asking questions, and many of them just say, oh yeah, because we ask, so what, stood out here? I couldn't think besides physician and nurses. So our goal is to stimulate that. I don't know that there is a connection with the school because we do have the lab there. And then I'm thinking that the guidance counselor and everybody else involved in those decisions for college, where they step in to start connecting those dots.
Yeah, because that's the piece where I'm a little bit concerned, because we can interest them, we can get them engaged at some level, but then if we don't have those very clear next steps put together.
All of our pathways that we have in elementary, we have a feeder pattern all the way through to high school, and the programs that we are implementing in our high schools especially are programs that our students can leave out with some type of certification or endorsement that when they leave school they can go to work. So if they're in culinary and they want to go and work at Advent Health, they're going to show up and they're going to have Serve Safe already done and already passed. And so we are doing that. What we have to continue to look at, and this is a conversation that we continue to look at, is how do we provide a variety of opportunities for our students and be able to afford to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And so we have gotten extremely creative in that, but it's definitely a work in progress. But when you look at what we have in our elementary schools, there is a pattern that feeds through. Our Education Foundation has been instrumental in that, especially when we first started off looking at the program at Rimfire. We had the program at Rimfire, we had the program at FPC. So we had to be strategic to make sure that there was a program at Buddy Taylor as well, and allowing our students to be able to go and be able to experience all the way through, and ensuring that we're not just pushing them to be doctors. And so when you look at the Rimfire program and the experiences that the students get over the course of kindergarten all the way through 5th grade, it's a variety of different experiences that they will have, not all just medical related, as in I'm going to practice medicine, but we do highlight lots of different careers that they can have that are in the medical field.
Awesome.
We do provide a little feedback based on the job openings and the certifications that those jobs require, continued, and making sure that they align with the certifications that your students are graduating with. So we'd hate for them to graduate with a certification that there's really not a role for them at that time.
So that's happening today.
We provide that need. We also have a talent acquisition program. So these are talent acquisition. They help us with the hiring and the job fairs, and so they let us know also of those needs. But we can provide the resources to the school, the needs, but then it sounds like you have the pathway. It's just it's maybe educating the parents or.
And I will tell you, one of the asks that we have specifically from the students of Matanzas High School. I literally had students from Matanzas High School stop me and say that because of the growth of healthcare, they were advocating, we're getting a hospital on the north side, we need to have a medical, some type of health program that is also on the north side of our county. So our students are advocating for that as well, to not just have it there at Flagler Palm Coast High School, but also available to our students at Matanzas High School. So how do we do that and stay within our staffing formula, also ensuring that we have some type of feeder program that they can be completers with certifications and those things.
Yeah.
Good question.
I just wanted to acknowledge the original conversation after we had the, what's the name of the?
Who we play for?
Who we play for.
Yeah.
I want to acknowledge Joe Rizzo.
Oh, I'm glad you said that.
Because Joe was instrumental
Yep.
in creating and helping to kind of
Absolutely.
piece the
Yeah.
pieces
Yep.
together.
Yep.
And so I just wanted to take a moment to recognize
And
him.
instrumental in ensuring that the investment that was made early, because when that investment was made into Rimfire Elementary School, it wasn't something that was happening.
Right.
And so he really made sure that the investment that Advent Health was putting into our school was going to end up with a pathway. That we weren't just going to do this and have this gap, but we were going to have a pathway. And so I'm glad that you recognize
Yeah,
that.
and I remember very specifically the conversation around who we play,
Yep.
for and tying this in and how it can all kind of be brought
Yep.
together. So just thank you, and I once again.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, when Joe came over to have this conversation, many years ago, we started the conversation. He said, "Wally, I just want to make sure I'm not coming over here to ask for a box of Band-Aids, okay?"
I know. That sounds like Joe.
Yeah, that's.
But I remember
We get
sitting
it.
around the table and saying, what do you want? And us making a list. I mean, Paula St. Francis,
Oh, yeah.
we made a
Oh, yeah.
list. Here are the things that we want. I mean, we went
Yeah.
big too.
But you see how it's grown.
Some of our
It's-
students,
it's been really
and
nice.
sitting with our students, and our students, we wanted an X-ray machine. And we're like, I remember them saying, we can give you an X-ray box. And so on the wall in Rimfire, there is a box, and we have X-rays that our students can go in, they can see, but they're like, we want an X-ray machine. And they're like,
All right.
okay.
Dream big.
And they did.
That's where the tour comes in handy.
You brought our students over and allowed them to do the Da Vinci machine,
Yes, I
like
remember
just
that.
so many different things that I can think of from the partnership. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all for having us.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
All
Thank you
right,
so
we
much.
appreciate you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're gonna move on to 6, academic services, 6.01, 24-25 instructional calendar presenter, Ms. Buzzardet.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Today. So typically at this time, the instructional calendar would be presented before you. However, this year is a little bit different than others. Our calendar committee has not yet convened because there's a confluence of factors that will impact the direction of our calendar committee and that are going to force us to examine what we have as our priorities for Flagler. So our calendar committee, just to kind of rehash it, it is comprised of district, FCA, and FESPA representatives along with parents. There are 2 members of FCA, 2 appointed by FESPA, 4 appointed by the superintendent, and 2 of our parents. We are in communication with the entire committee, and we do have tentatively a calendar committee meeting scheduled for Monday, December 4th, but we do need your direction first. I just want to let you know that as we go through the factors, please feel free to stop and ask questions because you will likely have them. If you've looked at the presentation in advance, you probably already have those questions queued up and ready to go. So the instructional calendar for 24-25, one of the things that statutes dictates is that we cannot start any earlier than August 10th. The first factor that is causing a potential issue for us is that August 10th falls on a Saturday, which means that we cannot start school until August 12th. The next factor that we have is it's an election year, which means that our campuses are used as polling centers on both the primary and general election days, so August 20th and November 5th. Our sites that we use for polling include 4 out of our 5 elementary schools, Belterre, Old Kings, Rimfire, Wadsworth, and Matanzas High School is our only secondary school that's used for polling. We do have additional sites that do not have K-12 students on campus during it, and that includes FTC, the Flagler Community Education Building, and the Carver Center. Just to kind of give you a little bit of information, at Belterre, because I think this might influence some conversation, at both Belterre and Rimfire, we use the multi-purpose room. At Old Kings, it's the music room. At Wadsworth, it's the cafeteria. And at Matanzas High School, it's over in the Concretable Building 9 in room 102. And that may vary based on which classrooms they're using for their school space. But the elections office does have a use of facilities in place already for each of our schools. In the past, when the calendar committee convenes, these aggregate priorities have been something that we look at. We always look to ensure that we end the first semester before winter break, and that's for a variety of reasons. It includes attempting to align with dual enrollment calendars. It's quite honestly a natural stopping point for when you're going to end a quarter and classes, especially for those that are semester long, which we most frequently see at the secondary level. It's a clean time for students transferring in and out of the district. Our student progression plan does dictate some rules with when a student transfers in or out of the district within a certain number of days of one of those quarters or semesters. So that's another reason why we try to do that. And it allows for the calculation of GPA, which might impact a student's eligibility for programs such as dual enrollment or athletic eligibility through the Florida High School Athletic Association. We also try to balance the number of days in each quarter, but sometimes that's just not always the easiest thing to do. You'll notice that we oftentimes have 87 days in one semester and 92 in the other, and 87 days is really a sweet spot, and I will get to that momentarily. The other priorities that we have seen a lot of conversations from our community members, parents, and our calendar committee is a variety of people, and one of the things that they all bring back from their constituents is the importance of having a week off at Thanksgiving break. The other thing that has always been a major priority is to not have students on campus when our schools have been in use for polling sites. The last time we had students on campus for polling, when our campus was being used for polling, was during the 2016-2017 school year. So we have really made a concerted effort to keep our students on campus on those days. So the implications and why I sit before you today without a calendar to present and without our committee convening is because if we were to preserve those priorities of ending the first semester by winter break and maintaining a week off for Thanksgiving break and not having school for students on the polling days would mean that we would only have 85 days in semester 1. This would mean we would not meet instructional minutes at our high schools as required by statute. And the statute dictates, the reason why it impacts the high schools is because statute is directed by the definition of a credit. And we issue credits for high school courses that meet graduation requirements. So while students are taking courses and classes at the elementary and middle schools, we are not issuing course credits. So the definition of a credit gives us the number of instructional minutes that we have to have in order to issue a credit and at the same time a half credit. So when we have a year-long course, it's 135 hours. Block courses are 120 hours, and when you're looking to get a semester-long course to issue a semester credit, it's 67.5 hours for a full year-long course, even though it's a semester, so our skinnies, and it would be 60 hours for the blocks. So that is where we're running into the issue. I mentioned just moments ago that 87 days is kind of our sweet spot. Currently at our high schools, our periods are 47 minutes in length. If we were to take 47 minutes times the 85, we would fall short of that 67.5 hours. We need 48 minutes in the period in order to let 85 days work.
Semester.
In the semester, yes. Okay, so the options that we have to consider would be to have school on polling days, or to have school on Monday and Tuesday of Thanksgiving break, and that would bring us up to the 87 instructional days that's necessary to meet the instructional time, and we would not need to add instructional minutes to the high schools. Or we could preserve the week of Thanksgiving break
and not have students on campus on those election days, but we would need to add 1 minute per class period at the high school, which would give us 7 minutes total. So my
like a no-brainer.
question to you is, what are the priorities of this board?
Add a minute.
I will say,
I would
for
say-
me, add a minute.
Add a
for
minute.
sure.
Add a minute?
Yeah,
Okay.
add a minute.
Okay.
That's what's gonna keep the community and staff and the kids happy.
I will tell you, the Thanksgiving break has been a priority for our
Forever.
families.
Yeah.
And
Forever.
so, but we want to make sure we get the priority of the board before we go in and meet with the
Plus, I
committee.
think adding 1 minute per class
It's not a big deal.
should not be a big deal.
Can I ask just a silly question?
Absolutely.
Are there any implications with union contracts, with HR? I know we're
You brought
talking a
that up.
minute,
Yep,
but
we did take a look at that. So by contract, teachers provide instruction for up to 27 hours in a week. Since we, at the high schools, we wouldn't be changing anything with elementary or middle school. At the high schools, since they have planning inside the day, adding that 1 minute per period is not going to impact or meet the thresholds to surpass what the contractual time is. And our contract times at the high school, we have so much time on either end because of the planning inside the day that the 7 minutes won't make a difference. So we have looked into the contracts, and there would be no contractual issues that would arise by adding those 7 minutes, because 1 minute per period, 7
What would be the
periods.
length of like a period then?
48 minutes. So we go from 47 to 48.
Oh, okay.
And I know that seems so silly. Some surrounding districts like Volusia County, their periods are 50 minutes in length. So that's one of the reasons why when we look at surrounding counties and we're like, how are they doing it? Why aren't they having this issue? Why are we making up a day? Why aren't they? It's because of the length of the periods of each of the classes that comes down to it when you multiply it by the number of days that hit the semester.
Is there an impact on transportation?
So, yes, so continuing forward, if the impacts of adding instructional time, we would increase the student day at the high school by 7 minutes, which if we take a look at the next slide, our current times, our high schools let out at 2:40. If we were to add 7 minutes, I put 2:50 just for a round number. I know presenting one time before, everyone likes the round number, but ideally we would want to have that end time to be 2:47. And the reason being is transportation can get by with a 50-minute turnaround. Their sweet spot is 55. So if we can have 53 minutes between the high school run and the elementary run, that would help prevent delays in buses getting from their high school routes to getting to the elementary schools for pickup. So ideally, even though here it does say 2:50, if we were to add the minute, we would probably propose instead to have an end time of 2:47. If it is the pleasure of the board to have it end at that a 2:50, a rounded number, we will work with transportation to see if any other adjustments would have to be made, and we would just use those additional minutes to either add a minute to a period here and there, and most likely at the lunch periods to help avoid some overlap in the lunch times in passing.
is there a reason why it would have to be a round number, other than like, that just
No,
looks better?
Just because people like the periods
Yeah.
of 0s and 5s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Parents also like their kids home
Yeah.
on time, so.
Yeah, so, but 2:47 release, adding exactly 7 minutes would be the ideal.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So,
And you probably mentioned this, I'm so sorry, but the elementary and middle school, they're still able to get through all standards and they're fine.
yep, yes.
It's just the high school where there would be implications.
Yeah, and again, we hit the instructional time for the full year, so we have to have 900 hours of instruction over the course of the year.
It's just the first semester is taking
Yes.
so many days.
And
Okay.
yes, it's because the first semester, if we were only able to have 85 days in it, it'd be a very imbalanced calendar of 85 and 94. We always hit our instructional time. The issue is that issuing of a semester credit based on the definition and the hours dictated by it. So 67 and a half hours is what we need. And if you multiply 48 minutes by 85 days, we would be able to we'd actually exceed that 67 and a half just by a little bit. But if you have to round up, obviously, when you're dealing with the times. You can't say 47 and a half minutes because no one's going to run a 47 and a half minute calendar or bell schedule. So, but that is a great question. So the elementary and middle schools would not be impacted in any way, shape, or form.
Colleen.
just curious, with adding the time to the high school, overall, right, the impact for the year, would we be looking at shaving a day off at the end, or there's not enough?
We have not had that conversation.
Okay.
But as I mentioned,
It will come up.
we do have to factor two things into play. So as I mentioned, we need, if we were to go to a 48-minute period, we would need 85 days in each semester to issue that semester credit based on statute. So theoretically, you could have 85 in semester 1 and 85 in semester 2, which would be shaving 9 days off. However, while addressing the number of minutes to issue a credit, you also then have to meet the 900 hours of instruction.
Right.
So you really can't shave 9 days off, and it wouldn't leave any room in the event of a
I wasn't thinking
a
9
Tommy
days.
event
I was
that
just
we don't want to
wondering
talk
about
Yes,
if it
like a day or two.
Yeah.
That has not yet come up, but if my math is correct, we could theoretically shave a day off and drop to 178 days. If that was the pleasure of the board. And we can pull the surrounding counties, all of their calendars to see how many people are below the 180-day threshold. We did, in advance of this meeting, there were only 4 counties in the state out of the 67 who did not have a full week of Thanksgiving. So coming to this, I kind of assumed that that would be something we'd still want to maintain. But we can certainly look at it and give you numbers.
I was just curious, sometimes the year ends in an odd way on a Monday or a Monday, Tuesday, and the kids don't go anyway.
It's a leap year
Yes.
too, isn't it?
This year's a leap year.
Yeah, this year's a leap year.
Yeah, this
And the
year's
parents
a
don't
leap year.
send them.
Yeah, so that helped us out here. If my
It is a leap year.
if my math is correct on this, if we were to extend the day and we do end at the, and you will not find it in this presentation, but I believe that when our calendar committee gets together, by having 85 days in semester 1 and 94 days in semester 2, that may, I'm not saying it definitely will, because my memory might not be perfect, it may result us in coming back the one day after Memorial Day for students. So this might become a conversation if it is the pleasure of the board.
That's what I'm saying.
So-
Sometimes it just ends weird.
If that's something that you'd like our calendar committee to consider as we're having our meeting on Monday, I can certainly present that to them and say, should we end with a single day after that long weekend that we have to come back? Do you want us to consider making it 178? We can certainly have that ready and available for the board to preview, to have those conversations then, and I'll make sure our math is there. That we have our instruction time.
Can we, oh, go ahead, please.
This year, the information that we had to submit to the state around our calendar, are there other things that we need to look at when we look at the requirement for us to hit the 180 days? Like, we can't shave off,
Yes.
so many days, but really looking at what the impact is for our elementary and our middle school on the number of days or hours requirement that may not be the same as for our high school with their credits. So we gotta just look at all of those pieces, all the different statutes around the number of days, number of hours for credits.
Got it.
Can we real quick have a hurricane conversation? Because that is also a factor in
Yes,
this first semester.
That'll be identified too.
And so I don't know, as part of this conversation, because hurricanes, it's not just the day of, right? It can be, now we're being used as shelters, or
Can be a week.
So as far as Thanksgiving week, is it like, hey, parents, we're going to do our best at preserve, but if the hurricane gods aren't so nice to us that year, it may have to come out of Thanksgiving.
And so when we design, and that is a great question, as we design our instructional calendar, we will set designated days of when the hurricane days would be, should one arise. And what we typically do is we try to identify the earliest days up front, because of the fact that if a hurricane happens in August and we have a day coming up in September, we'd like to use that one so we're not going into Thanksgiving. We don't want to stack them at the very end because then we'll lose other opportunities for days. So when our committee gets together, and you possibly recall from this last calendar when we looked at it, Thanksgiving was those 2 days were our last options of what we were going to try to use in the first semester. I believe it was last year or 2 years ago where, because of the timing of the hurricanes and the frequency of days that we had to lose, we did have to end the semester, even though it was originally planned. It was actually last year, even though it was originally planned to end before winter break, we ended up having to extend 2 days into the second semester, until January.
Was that when we had the weird November?
Yes,
Like,
I believe
which is
so.
more unprecedented, but still happened.
Yes, so
And
that
when
happened
we
last
had the
year.
conversation, when I was able to sit on that calendar committee, we did say, let's actually prioritize our dates. Because we always had our Thanksgiving week listed, but it was just kind of like, it's there, but nobody's going to go to school during that week.
right.
So that's when we went into, let's put a priority of these days to say, here's the first day we'll go with, then we'll go with this day, then we'll
Yeah.
go with this way,
Yeah.
and here are our Thanksgiving days here at the end, and saying to the committee, if all of these other days are exhausted, then we would have to use that.
Yeah.
But really identifying which days are we truly going to use, because that year that we extended the semester, it was because we didn't actually use the days that we identified as hurricane days, because they were during Thanksgiving break.
Yeah, and that hurricane that caused that chaos for us happened in November, and we're like, it's 2 weeks out. We already know that we have families who have planned. We also know that we have staff members who have planned. So we knew that it would be more of a stressor on families and staff if we tried to bring them back at Thanksgiving, even though it was one of our designated days. Because I feel like the hurricane may have happened November 7th or sometime around there, and it just wasn't enough time with when Thanksgiving fell for us to act on it.
I think it was one of our first meetings that it came up, so,
Possibly.
yeah, and I think you guys brought up a great point. It's the communication with the parents and staff also. What's the answer there? Is it to say like, hey, don't make sure you take out travel insurance because, your Thanksgiving plans may fall through, or is it just, it's a tough, the calendar is tough when we have to factor in weather.
Yeah.
So that team will get back together on the 4th. If they're able to get it all really work through on the 4th, then we will likely come for an update to you on the 5th of December, and this will come before you on the 19th of December.
Thanks for good work.
Of course, absolutely. Thank you for the input. We always appreciate it.
And thanks for coming with solutions, like, that was really great.
Anytime. Oh, absolutely. Any other questions or? Perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
701, Quantum Health Presenter, Mr. Ouellette.
Nice to see you all again. You won't be here for every page.
Thank you. How are you?
I love it. Would you like? Some extras.
Is the packet exact to the
It is,
presentation? So
yes.
that- okay.
Should I kick things off, Bob, or would you like to?
I'm absolutely going to hand it off to you.
Sure. Well, good afternoon. Nice to see you all again. I'm Danielle Boyle. I'm a Senior Vice President with Brown & Brown. It's nice to meet you, Superintendent. I've met several of you before, most of you, I believe. So today we're going to be looking at the Quantum Health year-end reporting. So we had our new account manager come out last week and presented this to the HR team, the benefits team. I will say we had requested a change in the team that was managing Flagler School's account, and we've been really pleased with that. I work with another client that has Quantum, and I noticed a difference in the delivery of the service and the accountability and the follow-up. We moved to that same team, and they really specialize in your group size and in just really hands-on service for public sector groups in general. So I think it's been a good change, and I hope the benefits team can confirm that. So this is a report that they were able to review with us, and I'll hit the high levels for you. I'd be happy to answer any questions. We do have an appendix in the back. So what we're going to be looking at is your data from your last plan year, so September 1st of 2022 through August of 2023. I did think it would be helpful to start with a reminder of what Quantum Health, what their mission is and what they are supposed to be doing for Flagler schools. So the care coordinators and the full pod team that is assigned to every client within Quantum Health's book of business is listed at the bottom. So you have anything from a pod manager, an assistant pod manager, medical directors, social workers, pharmacists, eligibility coordinators, and they're led by an execution team, and that's really our contacts. So that's your client relationship manager and the supporting staff under them. That whole pod is trained on Flagler School specific benefits and your employee population. So this happened during implementation. They do a refresher every year. Anything that we really want to focus on from a benefits change standpoint, what we want to focus on, driving preventive care, those are the types of things that the pod does for us. There are a couple of examples of life-changing diagnosis. On the left, there was a 27-year-old member called with questions about infertility benefits. Digging deeper, the pod, the personal care nurse was able to uncover that the person had cancer, and that was what was causing the miscarriage, was able to work with her along the way. And so that's really the more hands-on approach that is the value driven by Quantum. It's different than, and so I'm pretty agnostic when it comes to insurance carriers. I think they all have a similar customer service delivery at their base model. 800 number, a team of CSRs, customer service reps, answers the phone and tries to get the person off the phone as quick as possible. And that's broken when it comes to healthcare. And so whether it's Quantum or any other concierge type service, that is really what is needed in the healthcare industry. It's confusing to navigate. You're told you have this new scary diagnosis, now go find the best provider at the best cost, and you don't even know what you're gonna pay until you get the bill. So that is part of what they're trying to solve for. So going into the actual data, we're on page 3 now. This is the executive summary, so I will go through most of this for you guys. 53% of your employees are engaged. So engaged is considered more than one conversation with someone at Quantum and one of your members or their doctors. So it could be either the employee or the person's doctor, and more than one conversation. So 53%, which is above the book of business of 46%. And the idea is engaging with employees and providers earlier and more often leads to more trust. So if you can get to know them, show your value, they will trust the service delivery model.
Do you have any idea what the rate was last year? Because I know utilization was always an issue.
It's in the.
It's in there. I want to say 46.
It was around 51 actually.
It was
51.
year one, so
it's
we've gone
moving in
up.
the, okay,
Yes.
it's going up.
Which happens because you have a new vendor that comes in and people aren't familiar with it. They're still coming to the benefits team for everything, which they were last year.
Gotcha.
There's been a real focus within the benefits team to, if someone comes in and has questions, let's call Quantum together and let them help you out and try to get the most from the service. So 95% of members with annual claims over 50,000 are considered engaged, so that's really what we want. Your high cost members, we've got 87% of them that have a real-time intercept, which I'll go into in a minute. That's kind of the data-driven secret sauce that Quantum has. It's backed by actuarial studies, so I'll go into that. And then 3,000 patient advocacy conversations. So that is talking to the members or talking to the provider and trying to help them solve their problems. The bottom left quadrant I want to show you is the cost, and we'll go into the details on this in a moment, but they estimated $402,000 saved by that real-time intercept, which means if somebody is sick and they go to the doctor and they have a claim that comes through saying that they have cancer, most insurance carriers won't know about that cancer until the claim comes through 2 months after or 3 months after the date of service. Whereas Quantum is recognizing this through their algorithms and proactively reaching out to the provider or the employee sooner within the healthcare journey. 636,000 saved in activity-driven savings. So these are things like navigating complex care. That's the biggest bucket. referring to more appropriate sites of care, so we'll go through the data on that in a moment. And then the two quotes that are in green, starting with Stephanie was fabulous. She walked me through downloading the app and looking for the correct provider. She was caring, patient, and helpful. That is specific to one of your members that called in. Same with the bottom left corner, which I don't need to read to you, but you can see that nice compliment there. We did have 100% chronic condition high-risk member engagement. So people that are dealing with things like asthma or heart disease, or we'll go through all the different buckets in just a moment. They had 100% member engagement for those that are considered high risk and chronically ill. 43 members transitioned to low risk from high or moderate risk. So that's things like if a diabetic doesn't realize that they need to do X, Y, and Z to manage their condition, they're being guided on those care journeys and what to do to close those gaps in care. And I think that's good on this page. So on page 4, we're talking about engagement and how do they stratify the risk. And this is something that's really important, whether you're talking about quantum, an insurance carrier, any type of disease management or chronic condition management vendor that you would ever work with. You want to know how many people do I have in high risk, moderate risk, and low risk, and how do I move them from high or moderate risk down into that low risk bucket? You have 33 members that are considered high risk, which is slightly above, 0.1% above Quantum Health's book of business. So typically you're going to have a very small fraction of your employees or members that are driving the most risk or expense. You have 29 members that are considered moderate risk, and 34% or 517 members that are considered low risk. So you will have some members that aren't in any of that category because they're not utilizing the health system, or they don't have any risk at all. They may go for their wellness visit, everything comes back fine, and they're considered.
Can I ask a question? The total membership, the 1,494.
Yes.
Is that the total membership that are taking advantage of this?
No, that is total.
Or the total
enrolled. So you have about 12 or 1,300 employees, and the rest are dependents within that membership group.
Okay.
Just medical plan members.
Gotcha.
Correct. And some of the key insights, 39% had some level of risk, whereas the others did not. You had, I think we'll go into the next page to get into more of that detail. So we're talking about chronic conditions, and those include hypertension, hyperlipidemia, diabetes, coronary artery disease, asthma. These are all the things that really drive a lot of your ongoing claims. If they are managed, many of them can be considered low risk, but if you're not managing these chronic conditions, they can really blow up. There's nothing more scary than an unmanaged diabetic that doesn't know that they have diabetes or that isn't managing that, because it can really be life-altering or it can actually be fatal. So you had 357 members that were identified as being chronically ill, 132 with more than one chronic condition, which is pretty common. We see hypertension and hyperlipidemia and diabetes kind of all go together in many circumstances. And 62% of your moderate risk were engaged, but 100% of those that fall into the chronically ill and high risk were engaged with Quantum.
What's CHF?
Coronary heart failure.
Wow, 80%.
Well,
is that normal?
So you don't have 80% of your population that has that. So that's, where are we at?
80% of the
80%
high risk are in high risk.
Yes, because it is such a high risk category. And what that can really do is make it so your lungs can't pump out the liquid enough, and it traps your heart. It can be a really scary disease. However, if you manage it, it is something that you can live with, yes. Going on to page 6, we're looking at your members over 50,000. So in the insurance world, that is really what we consider at the beginning of a high-cost claimant. It's typically not a normal childbirth or a normal surgery. It's something that's a little more extensive. So looking at this group of members, 94.9% were engaged out of those that were in the 50,000 and above. You had 39 members that fell into that category, 8 with cancer, a couple with injury or trauma, musculoskeletal is MSK, 5 members with cardiac, and 7 with digestive system. You'll see your top condition listed as infectious diseases. That's kind of
what is that?
I was talking about this with the benefits team. It's an issue in the medical billing, I think, world, because infectious disease is sepsis. So it used to be you have surgery and that's the primary diagnosis, whatever that surgery is addressing. Or if you have, I think that's the best example. Well, sepsis has been reclassified within the last 5 to 6 years according to our carrier reps, and they are reimbursed more for any claimant that is or is coded as septic. So whereas it used to never be on our listing of high-cost claimants, it's now on most of them. And when I started seeing it a few years ago, I thought maybe it was related to COVID or that somebody had some other infectious disease, and it's sepsis. So we had 2 claimants. One of them was over $1 million. Unfortunately, it was sepsis, but it was a cardiac event.
Wow.
17 out of the 39 high-cost claimants were also in the prior year high-cost claimants. I thought that was interesting as well. Going on to page 7, we'll look at preventive services, and I think that we have a lot of room for improvement here. 41.7% of members had routine care, which was below Quantum's book of business of 46. But when we look at the recommended screenings completed for engaged members, 43%, so more of those engaged members were having their screenings. But really, I think what's most alarming is the bottom, 48% members with a PCP relationship, so it is helpful to have a primary care physician relationship. One thing that is missing from this data is you do have your near-site clinic contract with Advent. Those are not submitted as claims, so Quantum doesn't have a line of sight into that primary care relationship if that is someone's primary care.
So is that what that is saying, is that only 48% of our members
have a primary care that has come in through a claim or that they have identified whenever being asked?
So that's probably, they don't have a primary care because they're just going to the clinic.
Correct.
Or using urgent
Or
care.
urgent care, which
where
is
they're going now.
terrible. Right.
We find a lot of men, especially until they get to their 50s, don't have one unless their spouse encourages that strongly. We also find that a lot of younger people just still think they're invincible and never take the time to set it up. I was talking to Angela about it, and both of us lost our primary care physicians in the recent past, and we have not replaced that relationship. So it's even whenever you're in that world, you can fall into that category. But it's incredibly helpful to have a primary care physician that can help you manage your whatever condition may come. You may not have something now, but if something does present, you don't want to go to the urgent care or emergency room for something when your primary may be able to get out.
Can I add a quick post-it note to the board? And this is going to come off so random, but I don't want to forget the thought. Something that I am a little bit troubled by is our policy on sick time and vacation time, and how many employees are saving that and I would argue as part of their retirement plan, right? So sick time and vacation time are in place for your health and your quality of life, right? So if I'm like a squirrel burying those days away, that benefits Flagler schools not at all, right? Because they're not as healthy, they're not as happy, they're not potentially as engaged. So just as that post-it, to me that is a conversation that we need to have, that when we don't have people going to the doctor, but they're saving away, I don't know if they can go to the doctor as part of sick time, as do we need to adopt a PTO policy versus sick time? That's where my head goes when I hear this, because people need to go to the doctor. Women need to be getting mammograms. We need to be, our employees need to be taking care of themselves. So when we're at like 40-something% of basic health care, it makes me think of different policies. And do we need to, from a stick and carrot perspective, do we need to almost say, you have to use your time. Anyway, thank you for allowing me. It's posted. Thank you.
I just wanted to bring up, I think it's really very interesting when you look at the national average, like the national averages, the national benchmark, if you will, for the preventative screenings. So mammograms don't look too bad, but all the rest of them are, our averages compared to the national benchmark are horrible for preventative screening. So the question that I would have is, do you know, and you might not know, but how are we communicating that piece to employees, right, about the preventative screening? Because you could catch an awful lot of issues.
And that was my question too, because educationally, that's where quantum has to get stronger, I believe. You know, I mean, we need to educate and get, a third of our people getting their normal screenings. A third, that's not so good. We need to increase that, and that's what I will be looking at in the future, to make sure that we get it increased, because the preventative piece is the largest piece here.
It is.
You know, and that's going to save us a lot of money down the road, and them a lot of aggravation. But it's education. We need to educate the employees that they need these things for a good reason.
Some of these some of these are going to be based on age as well.
Yeah.
They may not qualify, or they should be doing them when they're younger or when they're older, so that could be part of it too.
Right, but I mean, that a third is pretty low.
And what is the impact of like telehealth on any of the numbers, especially around like members with a PCP relationship?
So the teledoc that you all have in place is for general medical visits. So that is, I have a sore throat, I have an ear infection, my child has this going on. It's an acute, almost like an urgent care visit. There is something that is newer that I just rolled out for another client that also has quantum actually. Teledoc has direct primary care services as well now. It's more, it costs more money. So you can actually make an appointment, be seen within 5 days, which solves for some of the access issues that we've seen in the last several years where there's not enough primary care doctors in a lot of areas. So the member can schedule the appointment and be seen and monitored and actually managed by a primary care physician. They would have the same one through teledoc. But what you have right now is not that. It's more of the, I have a sore throat, I need a prescription type of model. That is a trend that we're seeing. It's a newer trend. I think we're all trying to solve for two things. Access, how do we get people into a doctor faster, a high quality physician, and how do we keep them engaged for follow-up care? So I know that now I have high cholesterol, but I'm not gonna see you again for a year and hopefully it's okay. So we really would like to have more proactive reach out by providers, whether it's through the Advent group, through teledoc, through anyone that can actually manage a care for a relationship or for someone that doesn't have that relationship already with a primary care doctor.
I mean, I just want to expand real quick on the education piece, because to me that is part of it. That's a big part of it. But the second piece is just very real world. I am an employee for Flagler Schools. When do I, because the clinics are open Monday through Friday, right? I mean, my doctor's office is Monday through Friday. That happens to also be when I work, right? So if you can just tell me a very real world scenario where one of our staff members, they've been informed, hey, you're 45, you're now approved for a colonoscopy. When do I go do that? Can I use my sick time? Do they, right? And I think, again, everybody is so busy. And so much of healthcare, we don't do things because we're all so busy. I don't take care of myself because I'm so busy. It's actually like getting the appointment set up that is the stumbling block, right? So I think we win when we start talking about these things in a very real world way, and how can we support our staff knowing they're slammed. They're slammed, and because we need them taking care of themselves. And so the one fundamental thing, I'm just gonna go back, is the policy conversation. And do we have sick time be something that you're not able to carry over? I'm not saying not at all, but I mean, anyway, it is education, but I know I need to floss my teeth. I've been educated on that. Do I take the time, you know what I mean, to do it?
Mr. Ola, do we do we have like a regular newsletter that goes out from HR to the members? Like for example, like Ms. Phillips sends out a Tech Tuesday, which with some very useful information at times. If we're looking to educate the members of that are enrolled in our insurance, that might be a way to do that.
We've sent out targeted ones at times of open enrollment and things like that, but we haven't sent, since the transition, a prescribed one like the Tech Tuesday. But that's
maybe like if it was a focus on preventative health screenings, that might. Sometimes it's just like you're saying, they're busy or life and sometimes just a reminder is like, oh gosh, I'm almost 50. I might need to get something checked out, right? So.
Or even just to send the chart of those recommendations, because many people don't know as they get older what they're supposed to start having if they don't have a primary care physician.
Right.
Yeah.
And part of our contract does include communications, and that is something we just talked to the new team that we transitioned to. We want that to be better. So, and we can pick out, they'll give us templates, and we can pick out what we want to focus on based on the data that we see. So whether that is getting a PCP or preventative screenings, that sort of thing. And we can also target the time that we send it. So whether we want to do mailers or email, it's how people can best be reached, and will it grab their attention? That's the other piece, is what's the best way to communicate with them.
And is there, oh, go ahead, Will.
No, I was just saying, really, that's what I see the true value of this here is to be preemptive, is to get ahead of it.
Yep.
And so whatever resources we have down that, we should definitely be tapping into, whether we do it internally or make sure we're getting the full value out of this program. So.
Do we today have an opt-in Facebook page for staff members? And I ask because newsletters are, I've done them as part of my career. They're a lot of work. But I think back, it's been several months now, but we had a woman present on a free diabetes program, right? And I took her card, and guess what? That went nowhere. I certainly didn't do anything with it, and it sounded like this amazing program. Again, if we had an opt-in even Facebook page for staff where we could just plug that in, and that's fast, and at least we're doing something to get the communication out there. So I think that's a really great thing. A Facebook page we could do, that could start tomorrow if that's not already in place.
We have proclamations throughout the year, like Breast Cancer Awareness Month, things like that. Like, let's make it a scheduled thing where we communicate, about getting mammograms and things like that. Let's build off of that awareness in the community already, potentially, if that's the goal. And it seems like that is the goal here. So.
Absolutely.
All right, so we are good on that page. We'll go on to page 8. This is the real-time intercept, and I highlighted it because it's taken me a while to understand this. So this is backed by actuarial studies, and so they group people into cost cohorts, saying if you have between $10,000 and $25,000 of claims, you're in this group. You have $25,000 to $50,000 in claims, you're in this group. And they tie the value of intercepting with that member's care earlier, but an actuary assigns that value. So for example, you had 4 members with over $250,000 in costs, with about $7,000 in avoided cost for that, whatever they did to intercept with that member. It estimated $28,000 in avoided costs. The biggest cohort was that $25,000 to $50,000 category, because really there's more you can do with that group of people, I believe, as well. There were more of them in that bucket, 50 members total in that bucket. So it's using a combination of technology, data feeds, clinical expertise, and provider engagement, where Quantum learns about those members' needs and course of treatment in real time, and then reaches out to them to guide them. So we noticed that you had this visit. What happened at that visit? Can we recommend that you do X? Is the way it's been explained to me. 87% of high-cost members had a real-time intercept, which meant that they were engaged 108 days prior to the trigger month, which a trigger month is defined as having at least $1,000 in claims associated with whatever that diagnosis is. So the estimated avoided cost due to that real-time intercept and more appropriate care guidance, they've estimated at $402,000, which is backed by their actuary. By a third-party actuary, I'm sorry, not theirs. Primary drivers of savings. So this is, I think, a little easier to understand. Navigation for complex care. So someone that is facing a new scary diagnosis and needs guidance on how to get the authorizations that they need, how to find an in-network provider within that specialty, how to find a more high-quality in-network provider within that specialty. All of that goes into the navigation for complex care. Navigation for all members. So if you are just calling Quantum to check what your deductible is and they say, do you have a primary care physician? No, I don't. And then they help you find one. That would be navigation for a regular member. Navigation for specialized solutions are things like telemedicine, second opinion services. If someone has a new diagnosis and they're really not comfortable with it, you can get a second opinion under your plan. And then page 10 really just digs into more of what each of those categories are. I think that one of the biggest things for navigation for complex care is those that have a hospital stay. There is a pre-admission, if it is something that is planned, an inpatient hospital stay, there's a pre-admission phone call that goes out to that member asking them, do you have a ride to your appointment? Do you have any questions about the instructions for your appointment? Just giving them more hands-on approach for that inpatient stay. And then the same thing when they are discharged from the hospital. Do you have a ride to your follow-up care? Do you have any questions about your medicine? How are you feeling? All of those sorts of more social aspects that you really don't get from the medical community in general. So early identification of acute and chronic condition journeys, and then primary nurse support also falls into that. I think going into page 11, this is really just going into who is engaged, and overall your employees have just slightly under or have just slightly gone up in engagement this year. Your members have gone up by about 2 points. So 53.7% of your members are engaged versus last year there were 51%. Quantum's book of business was 46. And this is all members, so not those high cost ones or the chronically ill. 54% prior plan year for employees, 56% for this year, sitting right at Quantum Health's book of business. We have some room to grow as far as with spouses and dependents, getting them engaged, but that's normal. They don't hear about this as often, and so we were talking about that in the meeting the other day. How do we best reach those spouses? Or what if it's English is not their first language household? And so we're really trying to figure out the best way to communicate with all the different types of employees and their dependents and spouses. Quantum does provide bilingual communication materials. You can actually go onto their website, click a button, and it goes into Spanish. So there are some enhancements there for those that speak Spanish, but you have many other languages that people speak at home, from what I understand. So how do we best connect with them? And I'm sure that that's a challenge you have across the board.
Can I ask just a follow-up on that?
Mm-hmm.
I would be curious to find out how many of our employees are on a family plan. The insurance is very good if I am a 25-year-old, no kid teacher. Awesome, right? If I have kids or a whole family who I'm paying for insurance, I don't know how our employees eat, right? I'm just being very real here. I bought a house for $120,000 at 3-something%. My mortgage all in is $900 something a month, right? That is not what a lot of our employees are at, right? So, and I know that my salary as a school board member might be under like a starting teacher, but it's probably not way under. And that salary pays really for my house and my insurance for my family, and that's it, right? So I otherwise then don't eat. So I'm curious how many of our employees are even taking out insurance for other than just themselves.
Fewer than 300, about 220, I believe.
And I guess I'm also curious, like from a recruitment standpoint, can somebody afford to work for Flagler Schools if they have a family in which their spouse doesn't have separate insurance? So that's going to be something I'm going to want to talk about at some point, is just very real world. What is the quantum benefit? And I'm not saying there's not a benefit, but what in real world dollars is it costing our staff to have this benefit? Is it $1,200 a year? Is it, what is it?
It's about $14 per member per month. So
Okay.
it's over $250,000. So the way that it works is that Blue Cross, because they're not providing member services and the authorizations and a lot of the things that you normally would have in an admin fee, their admin fee is reduced by over $15.
So like $14 a month
per month per
for
member.
anybody who has our insurance?
Yes.
Oh, that's lower than I thought that it was going to be. Okay.
But it's still, I mean, a normal admin fee for Blue Cross Blue Shield is about $50 per employee per month, and you guys have lower than that. I believe it's about 30-something for your admin fee. So it is a pretty good amount. I mean, $14 per member per month, you need to be getting a benefit out of it 100%. It's not like Teladoc at $2 a month where you are getting a benefit, but it's $2 per person.
Yeah, I think a lot of the family plans, because I used to have the family plan, and it's ridiculously expensive. But I think over the years, what a lot of people have done is they've moved their kids to Healthy Kids.
Yes, that's what they do.
Right? Move their kids off the insurance plan and on to Healthy Kids, and then it's just them and their spouse, or it's just them if they're a single parent. So I'm surprised that the number's even that high.
Well, and it could be.
And that's total dependence, though. I think we have less on that family plan.
No, family definitely.
Oh,
you have
families
fewer.
very
So employee
Probably
spouse,
a few
employee
dozen.
children, and family total you might have.
And that is probably just people that have not twigged on to, that's how you save a lot of money, right? Is you move your children to the.
And
Florida Kids
that's a line of questioning that I did with Bob several months ago, was as it relates to affordable, health marketplace, Healthy Kids. What services are we providing? Because healthcare is almost impossible to figure out.
Right.
And so are we helping our employees navigate that? Because as we talk about, everything we talk about, mental health, engagement, culture, the more stress we can lift off of our staff and their families just helps with like all of those pieces.
I know it's a whole nother conversation, but I would like to look into how can we improve our health insurance for our employees, whether it's a partnership with Advent. They have their own health insurance and they have much cheaper options. My family is with Advent, not with Flagler Schools, so it's just something to think about.
Advent plan.
You know what I think a lot of it comes down to, if you look at one of these pages that talks about utilization, like who are, there it is, on page 11, like 71% of our members are over 40, and then 72% are female only. Mm-hmm. So, which is why I think it's different than your book of business, because your book of business is pulling from other organizations that aren't made up of the same demographics. Our demographics are just, they're different.
They are.
But insurance is always a nightmare.
And it's a struggle throughout. I mean, I'm sure you all speak with other board members throughout the state. It's a struggle everywhere. I was talking to one of my coworkers today, and she said, "Oh, you're going to Flagler Schools. I was a teacher for Volusia, and I actually had to leave there because they capped my salary for budget purposes," and was telling me all this stuff. And it's the struggles that you have to go through for budget.
Yeah.
I understand that, and the cost, and you are not fully insured, so it's not like Blue Cross is telling you have to pay $1,500 a month for family coverage. It's truly the cost of what people are utilizing the plan for. So how do we bend that is really what we need to do.
But Christy's right, when we do have an opportunity, when we go out, when we're looking at our plans, that is an opportunity to re-engage maybe Advent, like,
And they don't offer a network for self-insured groups the way that Flagler is.
Self-insured.
Yeah.
That's a big
Does it
issue.
have to be? Do we have to be?
No. It's pretty.
well,
it
being
saves us a lot of money.
self-insured, yeah, it has saved
Yeah,
us
a lot of money.
a ton of money. At one point in time, every year, our percent increase, it was like 30%. I mean, we were just,
It was ridiculous.
every year it was a ridiculous increase
Mhm.
until we went to self-insured and we were able to kind of stabilize that a little bit.
You're
But
capping
yeah.
the profit of the insurance
Right.
carrier, right? So typically, if you're fully insured, the carrier is going to say, I expect you to have $1 million in claims, so I need to charge you 1.2
Yeah.
for my overhead and profit needs, because they're not doing it for free. And so when you're self-insured, that really is taken out, it's shrunken enormously. So you still have stop loss that they need to make a little bit of money, and you pay your admin fees, but your overall fixed costs are not even 15% of your overall spend.
And maybe I'm confusing this with something else, but didn't we talk about joining with other counties too?
Yeah, I know the Northeast Florida School Boards Coalition initially, years ago, when we first initiated that was a push, that we were gonna try to gather those smaller districts to kind of come up with a self-funded plan. A lot of people got skittish of that because you can get hurt in the self-funded market. So everybody kind of stuck to doing their own, but the majority of those districts are self-funded now, I believe, to control the costs as much as they can themselves.
I think I brought this up the last time that you were here, but is there a way to get data on, we have, you said $1 million claimant, right? And so being self-funded, that's an ouch. Is there a way to get data of an employee's start date and file claimed, or when a file, sorry, help me with my words.
When a claim
was filed, I was reversing the words. And I brought this up before. Walmart corporate adopted a policy because they had so many people. It's pretty easy to get a job at Walmart, right?
So
And
they
they
were
had a
getting it
lot
for
of
insurance.
right. Like I need $1 million surgery. I don't have insurance. I'm going to go get hired at Walmart to pay for my $1 million surgery, right? So they then had a policy where you had to be, I think, an employee for 3 months, you know what I mean, or something before your full benefits kicked in. And so when we talk, I love all of your data, like it's phenomenal, but the data is only beneficial when it influences decisions and policy. And I know that comes off so callous, right? Like I'm keeping someone from healthcare, but and let me let you answer that question. Can we get that kind of data?
So what is your waiting period for new hires?
First of the month. You're eligible right away.
It's very rich,
So
and I
if
think
you're
that's to
hired-
compete with
It
probably
is.
local districts.
Yeah.
The most that you can have under the Affordable Care Act is the first of the month following 60 days, or you can have a 90-day, meaning you could start the benefits on the 14th, the 15th, the 16th, any day of the month. So that's just an administrative nightmare. Most employers that want to be more conservative, they do the first of the month following 60 days in order to comply with the Affordable Care Act. We could look at all of your high-cost claimants. We couldn't look at when did someone go to the doctor, because that would be thousands of claims
But we
per
could
month.
see like,
But we could
it'd be
see a
interesting to
correlation.
learn of our high-cost claimants, their tenure here, right? Because if they've been here 15 years, I'm thrilled that we had coverage for them. But if it's somebody who was here for a month,
And
2
then all of a
months,
sudden they had a
then all of a sudden
major
we have a
surgery.
major surgery, I think that is something this board would want to know. And if it's not an issue, it's not an issue, but that's just,
And if we have $1 million claim, we're not paying out.
No, you're capped at your stop loss.
So we have a stop gap loss coverage. So the max that we would pay out of the self-insurance
Is $225.
would be $225.
1,000.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No,
And then
yeah, which is-
the remainder for the $1 million is basically the insurance plan on the insurance plan.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That helps.
Reinsurance, essentially.
Yeah. Exactly.
Anyway, thank you, but that would be like cool
The other
information.
item to your point that I think this is something that we could potentially even send out shortly is last year, and I think I talked to you about this last time I was here, there was a glitch within the exchange, the marketplace within the Affordable Care Act, wherein the employee, their family members could not get a subsidy for an exchange plan if the employee had affordable coverage for employee only. So that meant that, let's say you have an employee that is making $30,000 a year, they have a household income that is below the federal poverty line or whatever the amount is that you can get a subsidy, as long as Flagler made the insurance affordable for the employee, which you do, so that you're not
$50 a month.
penalized.
For the single, yeah.
That whole family could not get a subsidy on the exchange. And so, yeah, Healthy Kids is around, but what about the spouse? And what if they can't get healthy kits for whatever reason.
Yeah, and I just so everybody, that's my family, right? So my family is, I've got my husband and my daughter, right? And so that's us,
So
where
you
it's
can
like,
now
am I
get now you can get a subsidy
Which is-
for your dependents. So
even
your-
though I've
your
got the
spouse,
affordable care?
you
Yeah,
can
because
stay
we
on
don't
this
want
plan.
people to not want to come work here
Right.
because it costs them, they can't live to work here. So that's great.
So this is the first marketplace open enrollment wherein that family glitch was fixed. So right now would be a good time to send out a reminder to employees that their dependents may be eligible for a subsidy on the marketplace. And it is a qualifying event under your plan for those dependents to come off of your plan during the Affordable Care Act Marketplace open enrollment, which is going on throughout the month of December.
We do educate them on that,
Yeah.
because we've got folks that have missed open enrollment or, don't have a qualifying life event.
And this presentation, was given to us over the Thanksgiving break, just before we went off too. So, everything that's been shared as far as, thoughts and ideas is exactly the same vein that we've been looking at this as well. How can we use this information to grow and improve? So that'll be the next steps, that we come forward as we move towards looking at next year's open enrollment and next year's, benefit package.
Right.
So, absolutely, there's things that, like all of you said, that we need to work on to improve.
And even to Bob's point on page 14 is what we had discussed with the quantum team, and we can come back to look at the pre-admission counseling if we need to, but what do we want to look at for what's the next steps? So we need a better focus in our marketing strategy. We need to get the mailers out, the targeted communications, the more frequent communications. So the ideas that we came up with were a PCP relationship, know where to go, so urgent care, emergency room, convenience care clinic, teledoc, doctor's office, give them the costs, showing the difference between all of those, because many don't know until they go to the ER and they're faced with this giant bill. Reminders on ways to engage, like things like, why is Quantum calling me? Because we had, and I will take you to that page for a second, the page right before this, post-discharge, so if someone was admitted to the hospital, you had 39 people that were admitted to the hospital, 37 of those were planned, so Quantum reached out to them after they were discharged and tried to talk to them about, can I do anything to help you, and only 12 of them were successful, meaning the rest pressed the ignore button on their phone because they didn't know why Quantum was calling, or that they should be receiving a phone call like that it's helpful. It's not asking for money or trying to do anything to their detriment, right? So we're trying to get that, and we have gotten better over the past year of really explaining this to employees, but I think more and more and more is better. And then we will absolutely be looking at ways to target cancer, giving people more resources as far as cancer diagnosis, because we've seen a spike in that within your population and across my entire book of business. So Quantum has a solution. I don't know that that's the way that you want to go, but we can explore the most cost-effective and meaningful solutions, which our medical director within Brown & Brown lives up in Boston, and she works with Harvard and many of the other Ivy League institutions. And so I have a meeting with her in 2 weeks to find out, how are you addressing cancer within these larger self-insured entities? So more to come on that. You can either pass my follow-up along, or I'll tell you whenever I meet with you again. So the rest is an appendix. I'm happy to go through anything that you have questions on.
Thank you.
All right, I think it's been helpful.
The data's great, Sally's right.
This data's,
phenomenal.
it's everything, and
Very helpful.
healthcare is everything, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, do you want a break now? What do we have left? Almost 3:30.
What do we got here?
We only have 2 things left.
Three.
Break. Yeah, let's take a break. All right, let's take a 5-minute break, and then we'll finish.
We're so close, Disco Man.
We need a break. Services 8.01 FPL easement for Kansas High School. Mr. Bush.
Good afternoon, Chair Massaro, Board, and Superintendent Moore.
Disco Bush.
Disco Bush.
I'm presenting to you for approval on the FPL easement needed for the Matanzas addition. This easement will give FPL the authorization to install conduit and cabling to the new transformer for the chiller. This is a picture of you got Matanzas Parkway. Our easement is not going to be starting until the number 2 that you see down at the bottom, but I just wanted to show you how they're coming across Matanzas Parkway, and then that'll be the first box, and that'll be technically what our easement, which you all will be voting on tonight to give them. Go to slide 2, please. So here's number 2 at the top, and it's coming down. That road to your left is the bus loop road that's coming down, going to the bus loop, and that, I won't say runs parallel, but it's fairly parallel where 2 and 3 just continue going down towards the bus loop. Slide 3. And this is, that very first part would be the asphalt going into the center of the grass, where that number 3 would be in the grass road of the bus loop, and then turning, heading east towards where number 4 is. That'll be where the new transformer is going to be located, west of the new chiller compound area that's going to be in the bus loop area. I just want to make sure that you are all aware that this will be coming to you tonight for a vote, because we need to get this signed so that they can go ahead with proceed with this. Yes. Is there any questions?
Just
straightforward.
Yeah, pretty much. So that the easement there, so that they can come in and repair the line in the future, any type of access they need.
Right. You cannot, without an easement, FPL will not basically get to where we need them to get to without giving them the authorization of giving them an easement to be able to do that.
Gotcha.
And this is all underground. This is not overhead.
Okay. Are we giving up any other rights with that they could use that for any other purpose in the future for any reason, or is it just for the purpose of this specific purpose?
That's correct.
Okay.
It is only the purpose to access, to first have the conduit put in with the cabling and to access the service that, or to get to those boxes if there were an issue. When when we had that issue, the power outage, clearly they had to come on our property, and there had an easement from the front all the way around the back, same scenario, for them to be able to do that to get to their transformers, because those are their transformers that they have to service and take care of.
Thank you.
Good questions. Can I ask a rando question while we're here talking about FPL and easements? Sure. I'm driving my parents' EV right now. There's nowhere to charge an EV in all of Palm Coast, and I don't even think anywhere in Flagler County. Just a question for you.
Is that the electric where they plug in?
Yeah, sorry.
Right, yes, the Wawa.
Really?
Yeah, they have 5, I think.
Oh, because I was just
I don't
gonna
know
say,
anyone
like,
else, but-
could the schools make any money off of us having some EV charging stations? Because
Mr. Freeman and I, we have
Probably
looked
grant dollars
into that,
available
but
for that.
I think my understanding is the Palm Coast City Council turned it down because it was too woke, and so I'm joking. I'm sorry. That was a little spicy. It's fine. I don't care. That was a little spicy today. But anyway, I just as I'm searching to find an EV charger, that just came to mind.
I know.
But yes, I think that there are grant dollars, and so is there money? We have property. It's a need. Anyway, I'm just
For people other than students?
No, for like faculty and parents
I
and teachers.
I was thinking for people
Like at
other
the
than
university,
students.
they have a number of different
Sure.
parking spots that are dedicated to that.
But for money listen, it was just a thought. We have even like our properties that we don't have students on right now. I was just like, there's a need.
I know that Mr. Freeman, he was looking into that. I believe it was very costly, and then how do you manage that? Who gets that? How do you stop
the revenue?
Correct.
So you
How
already
does that
did look
happen?
into it? You're so cool.
He's progressive.
No, that's awesome.
I don't know up
Thank
to
you.
what extent. I just know that he was looking into that.
We did look at it, and just the cost of putting in the line is almost cost prohibitive. The return on investment is just
Not
so
there.
far
Yeah.
out. We were looking at it with the city of Palm Coast, when we were piggybacking on that proposal.
Okay, yeah, and so thank you about Wawa. I'm gonna go
Yes.
there and see if I can fill up the car.
not
Otherwise,
sure if
I'm
there's-
stranded.
I gotta believe there's gotta be something at Palm Coast Park somewhere on the north end. No? No? I know Wawa does.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Sorry for the rando.
Is it
Thank
good?
you.
We good? Thank you.
Thanks,
802
Corey.
Cell Tower. Mr. Freeman, come on down. Oh, you took off your shots.
I wanted to make sure that the seriousness of this, everybody knows that we're serious about it. So board, good afternoon. Board, Chair Macero, Superintendent Moore. At the 17 October school board meeting, you had asked for an update on the FPC cell tower. This presentation will review the current lease agreement, the status of the cell tower, and then a recommendation. Go to the next slide there. The original land lease was issued to Florida Telecom Services in October of 2009, then transferred and assigned to Crown Castle in June of 2012. Currently, there are two carriers on our tower at FPC. There's T-Mobile and Verizon. The T-Mobile is a 4G, and as of September, the modification that we saw in September that's with Verizon Tower, that is a 5G. Our lease originated in April of 2011, and it terminated in March of 2016. It was extended to 2026 with a sixth and a final term expiring in March of 2046. So there were five, each of those terms were 5 years each. Each auto renewing term, there is a 15% increase with the current monthly amount at a little over $3,645. According to our lease agreement, it can be terminated with 30 days written notice by either party upon the default of the terms. However, the other party has 60 days to remedy that default. According to the lease agreement, termination by leasee if any environmental report for the land reveals the presence of any hazardous material. And then if you go into section 17, paragraph 17, it describes what a hazardous material is, and it could be including but not limited to radioactive material and any other substance or material which constitutes a threat to health. As I didn't mention it when I started, but I am not a cell tower expert. I'm not an expert in the wavelengths. However, my recommendation would be that we would reach out to an independent firm. I did reach out to two independent firms. One was SiteSafe and one was Viatech. To get a proposal for them to come and do a RF exposure or emissions test on the tower, where they would physically come, do a test on the ground, do a test up in the bleachers, do a test out on the football field, go inside our building 2 at FPC, or 7, right?
Building 7.
7 at FPC, and then come back to the board and outbrief the board with a written report, and the board be able to ask them questions, because they're the experts. I'm not.
Dave, is it actually is it a cell tower? Because I've seen people saying it's not even a.
It is a cell tower.
Okay.
Yes.
And don't we also have cell towers near the schools that aren't even on our property?
We do.
Okay.
We have one at,
Wadsworth.
of course, at Wadsworth, and then there's one across at the park at Rimfire, then there's one at Indian Trails Sports Complex, and then even at Matanzas.
You're saying these are not on our property?
They're not our property.
Those are not.
Okay, so we have no lease agreements or nothing, and that's
No.
just they're independently owned?
Correct.
Okay.
It's
but
probably through the city and the Parks and Recs
Yeah.
department.
It's the only one we have.
Okay. And then, but what, for example, when they did this particular tower that we have here, was there studies done at that time?
There are, when you do the initial tower, when they erect the tower initially, and when they are doing upgrades to the tower, there are studies that are required by the FCC.
So what was the last one in 2016?
I think it was in 2016.
Well, I'll say in 2009, when this initially occurred, nobody knew anything. There were no studies on that at that point in time that we were aware of, none that were brought to us. No concerns. As I think, you get into this 5G business, and you look at some of the research that's out there, I think it's worthy of studying.
All I'm saying is that I'm not necessarily against the study, just I want to make sure that we are measuring the specific concern. Like, for example, if it is in fact the RF frequency, then okay. But like you said, there's new technology. So you have the old analog cellular, then you went digital and 4G and 3G before that, and then so some people have come forward at our meetings and brought concerns, and that's kind of what tipped us to head this direction.
Yep.
So if we're going to do a study, though, I just want to make sure it's all encompassing and clarifies all the matters that might be brought forth by the community, parents, or whoever's concerned.
And who would we use?
There's an independent organization, Site Safe is one company, and then another one is Viatech, who back in 2022 or
yeah, when it was Miss
2021.
McDonald's.
Yeah, she had initially brought this up.
She had given me a name of somebody, and it was Viatech, and I did reach out to them, and I didn't get anything back from them, but I had a proposal. That gentleman, I think, ended up passing away, but he still has a company. But I know that the FCC and OSHA have set limits to the human exposure of radio frequencies and the energy, and they basically run the licenses for these companies. And then companies like this provide the studies for Crown Castle and any other tower folks that are leasing the towers. So.
Well, I think it definitely should be somebody that's impartial, because if we get a report done and it's deemed that, hey, these guys are in the pocket of the cell companies, it's not going to be.
That's
working.
why I was like, who?
Yeah, exactly. And
an independent group would probably be the best.
Yes.
To do anything like
just
that.
to make sure beforehand that
they're fully vetted. Yeah.
Right. And if because obviously these have been there with this other technology. The newest thing we're rating is 5G. It seems to be where the unknown is. So whatever are the risks of specifically 5G, I think we need to make sure we get all of that in this report. If it's just the radio frequency, then great. I just don't know what the hazards potentially are. So
Yeah, it sounds like that is a group that this is their business. This is exactly what they do. Probably, do they do it for public groups?
They do it for many different organizations, but mainly they do it for the FCC requirement for the.
So there you go. That yeah, you're not going to get anybody probably better than that.
I've read some journals on the radio frequency, but I am kind of curious, just for people, the community's peace of mind.
And what and also what actually are the effects? I'll do some more research on that on my own, but to kind of look at what is this affecting kids. You might have heard things like it can affect their behavior, it can affect their attention,
headaches,
and again, where's the data? The data to support all that along with this here, because obviously if it is causing harm to our students, then that's not worth the.
And it may be far enough away that it's not, but there are lots of studies, like we were just talking before. A lot of doctors now are saying, do not let your child put their cell phone under their pillow at night. Just having that device close to them may not be beneficial and whatnot. So, and everybody's different. Everybody's sensitivity level is different. But I'm curious to see what the levels are, how far it reaches, if it reaches at all.
Right. A couple months ago, the city of Palm Coast had their cell tower organization, who is I'm sorry, I can't remember who it is, but they came and briefed their commission and provided, there were 2 or 3 slides on this organization, the pediatric, they say that it's okay. FCC says it's okay. I didn't want to do that. I wanted somebody else to come.
I think that's best.
And present what the facts are.
Have they had theirs tested?
I'm sure they have. I don't know when the
Just
last
curious.
time it was.
Dave, if this board or a future board wants to, even if they're just, erring on the side of caution, wants to not continue with this, what are the implications? You kind of took us through a little bit of the contract language, but I know there's a little bit of money involved. I assume that our schools are getting some 5G juice from the proximity of this, but it would just be good to know, what would be on the other side if the vote came down to get rid of it.
I don't think we can get rid of it.
I think the you'd have to prove in a study that it's
Okay.
hazardous.
So can I just bring up a second point?
Yeah.
Can we, as a board, at some point talk about duration of contracts? 5-year contract, why? Why should, as a board member with a 4-year term, I could not even in my term weigh in on something that's a part of the district. So I'm just I'm a little concerned about the contracts that are put together with Flagler County Schools. And this is another example.
So this just
of that.
renews and we don't get a say in it, or?
Once it renews, unless we, for 5 years.
It says automatic renewal.
But is it at each term? So for example, I think in 26 is when the next renewal is. So does that mean that if we give 30 days notice before that, or they have, it's their
option.
They have a right to extend, or they can choose not to?
Correct.
Okay.
It's their option, and here's the
But we
reason
don't-
why. Back in 2009.
Why would we do that?
Back in 2008, 2009, the board at that time and the superintendent at that time, the only type of cell tower agreements that were entered into were long-term 30-year cell tower leases. That was the agreement. And it was pointed out to the board, to the staff, and to the superintendent that there was no mutual at each renewal term that the board or the cell tower company could non-renew with the 60 days notice. It is exclusively in the purview for the cell tower company to terminate. If it is their desire, there's other cell towers that would be more beneficial to them, this is in a good area, whatever the reason is, or they don't have people who want to utilize the cell tower, whatever the reason is, they can terminate the agreement. At the onset in 2009, when this was started, their investment, and when it was requested that there be that mutual term every 5 years, they said no, because our investment is $350,000. It was a high ticket item for back in 2000.
And we thought we were being good community partners.
No, that totally makes sense. I mean, Will asked such a great question earlier with Corey about easement and what is that, you know what I mean? What's the implication, with FPL down the road? Again, it's just, man, there's just always these moments where it's it's policy. And the fact that this is our property and our kids and our staff, and we, not this board and not this superintendent, but entered into this agreement that we're potentially stuck in, is icky to me.
Yeah, but you've got to understand, well, you don't have to do anything, but the investment, I guess a company's not going to invest $350,000,
I totally get it, and you can't see the future. I mean, we didn't know. I mean, back in the day, it was like, you have rollover text to use.
Right.
I mean, I'm old enough that I've been around pre-cell phones.
We're using pagers.
Yeah, listen, I'm 46, I think, years old. So I get it, you can't see the future. To me, this is a broader issue on contracts.
I think the only out that I see, if I'm reading it right, is if we do a study and it shows that it is hazardous,
Then we have a way out.
then we have a way out.
Yeah, but
So
they
I
get,
guess-
but they get to fix it.
They can remedy
They can
it.
try to
If
fix
they,
it
yeah, if
first.
they can remedy it, then,
Well, yeah, I mean, but I think that's
But-
a fair compromise. I mean,
Yeah.
in fact, it's not, I mean, we're not against, self-service, but we just don't want it to affect our students.
Right.
Are we
So-
paying for this study?
We are.
We are.
And how much is it?
$6,350.
Stop it. Sorry, I mean, listen, I mostly pay attention. What? Really?
Mhm.
Again?
That's probably pretty cheap.
It's not,
That's,
a lot.
listen, all right.
It's not.
Okay, so I guess we have,
We have no choice.
we have a plan forward.
And then I'll bring once the study is done, the company that did the study will come back and sit here and
Give us-
outbrief
give us the what.
And then you can
All
ask
right.
them any of those questions about radio frequencies that I can't answer.
I think it's important that as we get this study and we begin to engage with Site Safe, is ensuring that if there is an issue and we have a remedy, that remedy is a remedy that continues through. Like, what is that engagement? Because when I think about some of our community members who have come in, they don't necessarily trust that the remedy is going to be a long-term remedy, but it may be a remedy for the sake of this conversation. And so how do we ensure that?
And the only way you can do that is random testing into the future.
yeah.
Right?
There would be more likely than not an amendment to the agreement if something like that were to come up, where we would have to say, you will have to perform spot random testing X number of times over the period of time.
Do we have, what's my word, open enrollment, school choice, if someone is, because this is FPC, right?
Yeah.
If someone is at FPC and migraines and they feel like that's the cause and this report comes back that everything's fine, but they're convinced, otherwise, I assume they can school choice and go to Matanzas instead? Like what? I'm just trying to think of the individual people who have come forward.
I'd say
We
Like-
work
like-
with families individually,
Yeah. Okay.
for their hardships.
Okay.
They would submit a hardship and we would work with them individually for that.
Because we've had enough people come forward that if it is an issue and we can't solve it for whatever reason, I obviously still would want to accommodate those families as best as possible. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank
All
you.
right, I'll move forward.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All right, I already
Danny.
did 10:01. We're going to jump now to school board attorney information. 11:01, the administrative judge services contract with DOAH.
Chair Massaro, Board, Superintendent Moore, tonight at the 6 o'clock meeting, you will be approving a contract with the Division of Administrative Hearings. DOA is who hears our ESE matters. They also hear any of our 120 proceedings that could include a matter involving employees if we choose to go that route and have a DOA proceeding. Currently, the hourly rate for a DOA judge to hear our matters, to take it from the time when a petition is filed through a final hearing is $185 an hour. The new rate that has been set by the DOA administration is for $200 an hour. In addition, there's also a paragraph in there that sets forth that when we have an ESE matter that is before DOA, that we acknowledge and recognize and understand that any student information that is contained in any of our documentation when it gets filed, that we make sure that we do the FERPA protection and that those names are blocked out and excluded before we upload it. It's already a requirement that we have to do when we upload any pleadings to the DOA site, but this is now just commemorating it into the contract that we have that understanding when we do a DOA proceeding that involves an ESE student or student. So that's what's coming before you tonight is the hourly rate increase as well as the acknowledgement of protection of the students' information.
Okay. So standard.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're on on to old business. Do we have old business?
I have a quick thing if we have time.
Yep.
I saw that Orange County, they banned the use of cell phones, like, totally, and apparently they're reporting they've seen a lot of decrease in bullying, a lot of conflicts that they've had with students. And I'm not saying maybe that's something we need to do for all grades, but maybe something to look at up until 8th grade or something. And it's kind of also something I'd like to get feedback from our principals on and what they think as far as whether students should have cell phones out at all between their breaks and all. But look up Orange County and what they've done and some
I'm
of the
curious
feedback.
how, I'd love to hear from the administrators, how it's even going
Yeah, 'cause we
with this
have
new
a
statute,
stipulation
you know,
now.
how it's,
I asked a
how
few, and
is
they
it
said
going?
surprisingly it has gone, the ones I've spoken to has gone well.
That's what
And
I've
they
heard,
didn't
too.
expect it to be,
Yeah.
go as smoothly as it has.
Yeah.
So we have seen an increase, and we can bring forward an update to the board. We currently are seeing an increase in cell phone violations, and at the next Dean's meeting, which I think happened this week, or if it's happening on Monday, they are going to be looking at a matrix to ensure that our consequences are aligning with the infractions that we're seeing, because what we don't want to happen is for us to have students just getting repeated cell phone violations that really mean nothing, and I just kind of continue to get those up. So I know that's going to be a conversation at our Dean's meeting. It's also going to be an upcoming conversation for our principals meeting as well. But we can bring our secondary principals as well as Mr. Finelli to the board and have some discussions around it.
That'd be great. It'd be interesting too, I saw a report of a school, I'm not saying we would do this for everybody, but for those students who are repeat offenders, they have that technology where you throw your cell phone in. I don't know if that's legal here, but that would be interesting to find out, to your point, if it's overall not an issue, but with a small segment, do we have a solution for just that group right now? So, no, that'd be really interesting.
And I think as once we have this conversation around our discipline data, really looking at what other lower level offenses do we see students see repeated offenses towards, and ensuring again that our consequences do align with those offenses. But we definitely will bring that forward.
Awesome.
Chair, I had one.
Go ahead.
Kind of in preparation for bargaining in the spring, this is new. Well, let me back up. Wrong note. That's gonna be
New
under
business?
new business.
Okay.
But old business, I was gonna ask if we could have, because we're coming to the end of the academic semester, if we could get an academic update on where our students are in regards to finishing the semester. And I know that there were some pieces of data that came in at the beginning of the year, and maybe Chris could give us an overall update on academics. But specifically that end of semester, percent failing, C below, that kind of thing. If everybody is okay with that.
Yes.
And what we'll do is bring forward what we can in December, followed by in January. We could then, hopefully by January, we'll have finished all of progress monitoring number 2.
Yeah.
Majority of it will be
January,
in, so we
right,
can be.
no
yeah.
rush, but
Okay.
an academic update would be great.
Yes.
Any other old business? Okay, I have one. Over the past 3 weeks, since it's been 3 weeks since we've met, I've just been grappling with what to do with one of our colleagues' closing comments under old business at the last meeting. 2 of you weren't here, 3 of us were. And it really disappoints me. It disappoints me totally. However, I think that the comments were made with the idea of supporting a student and their family. And that's why I've decided not to censor, because there's a FERPA violation there. And that really bothered me a lot, that we had a colleague that made a FERPA violation. And I really would like to just take this opportunity to say, we get complaints, at least I know I do, I'm sure Dr. Conklin's had hundreds of them, from families on a regular basis. We get them all the time, but we don't bring it to the dais. We don't bring it to the dais. I think if you had addressed it more to public records and trying to get information and trying to address that, resulting in a letter or whatever, that would have been fine. I wouldn't have had a problem with that. When you brought it to the table about a family who had already been somewhat victimized and re-victimized them again, I had a problem with that. And that's where my problem lies. I know in your demeanor that it was to help. But there are right ways and wrong ways to handle things. And I believe that, you know, when we get I had a problem just the other day. Am I going to bring it to the dais? No. I'm going to figure out the best way, working with the superintendent and our administrative staff and whoever needs to be, to get it resolved for that family. I'm going to help them, but I'm not going to bring it and make somewhat of a show of it. That's not going to happen. And I would hope that in the future, when these things happen, and they're going to happen again, that you would think through the process of how to resolve and help that family instead of bringing it to the dais. Dr. Conklin.
I'm gonna say this. As we move forward into a new year, one, I think we need to set our retreat dates. Because that is a conversation that could take place at a retreat.
Correct.
100% came from, I believe, a very good place in protecting a student. So I didn't, obviously we weren't at the meeting, but and I know now what you're talking about, but I don't think there was any malicious intent at all.
There wasn't, I agree.
Right?
That's why I
And
chose
I would
to
just
do
say,
it.
moving forward, I think when we have concerns about the way we are operating with each other, this is just my opinion. In order for us to move forward as a team, I think those are conversations that in a retreat environment are better suited instead of at the dais, with all due respect.
No, that's fine, but I could not, in my good conscience,
I
it would be, I would be relinquishing my position.
I understand.
To not explain and educate,
Right, but
the right way to do things. You know, and I know you've all had other problems too. I know you have, and you've all addressed them. You know, quietly, get it fixed, help the families, work with the staff, whatever is necessary. But that was not necessary, in my mind.
Okay, I'd like to respond to that. So that parent wanted to be heard. She felt like she was not being heard. She sent me that and asked me to do that. So before you know all the facts, Chair Massaro, it was not a grandstand. It was, in fact, to protect a student, right?
Right.
And that parent felt like she had no voice, and she felt like her child was exploited in an article that caused him to be bullied again. That is where the victimization of that child came again, okay? So that, I did not use that child's story or that parent's story. They asked me to let them be heard because irregardless, it is unfortunate that if that in fact, that interpretation of that law is correct, that those identifiers had to be in that revealed, right? That is a problem, okay? And maybe that's something that we need to take to legislation days.
Correct.
Okay, so, but again, the law is a practice, and there's interpretation of the law. You can ask, you can ask 5 different attorneys, and you can get 5 different interpretations of the law. Ms. Gavin is our attorney, so that is the opinion that we have to work off of. But it is also my duty to question her and her opinions of that law as an oversight and accountability. And that was part of that conversation. So I did not use that for any other reason other than to let that mother be heard, right? And also bring awareness to a potential problem here that led to the bullying of this child once again after he had already gotten past that. And I just want to go any further about the article because everybody knows what happened there, and it was just horrible. And so
I think there's something, I'm sorry, are you done?
No, I'm done.
I think there's some things, we have to have these conversations out in the sunshine. We have to know. I am learning. There's things I have to discussions with our superintendent and try to work on those things quietly, but sometimes it has to become public and it has to be put out there.
I'm not even talking about the subject matter itself. I'm just saying, I think I'm just trying to figure out how we can all move forward into the new year as a team. And when there are issues, that we set up retreats so that the way we work with each other is not a violation of sunshine, right? We can have those conversations about how we work together so that we're more effective as a team, as a group. That's all that I was saying.
Our retreats are public as well. I mean,
Yeah,
Yes,
they are,
are.
of course.
They are. Of course, they are. You know, and the thing is, did you have, we get parents that want to do the same thing. I'm sorry, we do. And still, that's not our position. Our position is not to bring it to the dais.
Well,
And I'm not finished.
I disagree.
I'm not finished. Okay, you can disagree.
Right, I'm here to
I said, and the
represent
other
these
thing
people.
is, I'm not finished. Thank you. Every time you don't get your way, you just keep interjecting. I let you have your say.
Sounds
It's my
familiar.
turn. It's my turn. No, I don't. It's my turn.
Go ahead.
I let him have his say. I let you have your say. You know, did you get written permission, and you have it in your possession, a written document stating that this woman wanted that letter read at the school board meeting?
She sent it to me
Do
specifically.
you have written
Listen,
signature?
Chair Massaro,
This is what I'm
then
saying.
where are you going with this here? Do you
Because
want-
if you don't, that's a FERPA violation.
I have.
You violated FERPA.
I have permission from her to read that statement.
It has to be in writing. That's an education piece of this. And I'm sorry, it's wrong.
I have communication from her that clearly states in writing that I could read this here for her.
No names were said,
and
right?
yeah,
Isn't it the same situation?
So
Like-
it's the same public record that this was a statement.
You're the one that says everybody
Where's
knows.
so why didn't the attorney advise
Point of
me at
order,
that
just
moment
point of order, just
that
point of
I was
order.
in FERPA violation then?
It is a FERPA violation.
Let's point of order. Let's refocus.
So, you've made your
I made my point.
Your point.
Yes,
You
I
made
did.
your point.
Made my point. I
Okay.
could have censored, but I won't.
Let's just learn from those things, and I understand when you're
I
being
do
a
too.
voice for somebody
That's why.
else.
I do
so.
too. I think it was all for the right reason. I do. Okay. New business.
I have new business if
Well, there was something that came up earlier that felt new business worthy, and you wrote it down, and because you wrote it down, I didn't. So whatever, anyway, I should have also written it down, but I was trying to think of what it was.
Oh, a policy for the,
I have already
making
requested
it mandatory, requirement.
Cell phone.
No, the heart.
It's for the
Oh,
heart.
Screening.
The screening, yeah.
Okay.
I asked.
Was that it, or was there something else?
I don't know, maybe.
Okay, but that was one thing that we had said we probably should have.
I got one of those forms and I was like, we need to do this. And
Yeah.
then you just-
Yeah, that's-
Oh,
That's a
yes,
good
yes, for athletes.
Yes.
Yes, that
Am I
was
right?
it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
I requested Eric Nason to send
Yeah.
me that documentation. He, that's why. I
And we
said
could
that.
probably just find their policy on Orange County. Its website.
Yeah, I think that's further south, the county that did it.
He
but
named
yeah.
like 5 or so.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But I think several
Okay,
have
new
it.
business. In preparation of bargaining for the spring, I don't know if we can, but it would seem appropriate to me to do a financial update in executive session in preparation for bargaining. And outside of bargaining, if we could get a financial update to really have a good idea of how is the district handling the ESSER cliff, basically, right? As we come to the end of those funds, we've got, other things going on. That is a huge chunk of money that's not gonna be renewed. How's that gonna impact us? What's the plan and whatnot? If you could share that with us. So I guess 2 requests. One would be bargaining, executive session, and the other would be, a public agenda item on a financial update and how we're planning and preparing for the ESSER.
Did you say the spring? The timeframe?
In preparation for.
In preparation for bargaining in the spring.
Okay. And my only request, if I may, is wait until we get the third count in January.
Yeah. Again, just in prep, right?
Can I tag on to the financial question, or your financial piece? Again, forgive me, I was not at the last board meeting. Have we communicated out to the community about the $710,000? 2 pieces. One, because Superintendent Moore, you answered for me one-on-one that it was capital dollars, right? Anyway, that we're, as a district, still fine.
Yeah, we did provide an update, but Patty, what is the date that we're waiting for the response from the bank?
If you're not counting weekends and holidays, I believe it's around January 6th.
Okay.
So we're trying to have a mayor seek clarification from JP Morgan Chase.
Okay, so and again, I'm just thinking of the community. There was an article written, right, so people were interested. And then the other piece of that if we have not already communicated out, it would be what safeguards have been put in place so that this doesn't happen again. Because next time, what if it is reserve fund dollars, right, instead of capital dollars? Because then we're kind of sunk. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? All right, public comment. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Seeing no public comment, closing comments. Do we have closing comments? Hearing no closing comments, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. We'll resume at 6 o'clock tonight.